Okay, welcome everybody to this County Council meeting for Monmouthshire County Council, Thursday 3rd of March 2022. We are at County Hall in Usk. This is our first full hybrid meeting, so I welcome everyone in the chamber and welcome everyone that's joining us as well remotely via Teams. I want to start the meeting, before we get into any business of the meeting at all, with a statement. Members, the events unfolding in the democracy of Ukraine over the last 7 days are traumatic and tragic. I don't think any of us expected to see events of this nature in our lifetime. This council has made clear its support for Ukraine and its people. We will be a county of sanctuary once more and play a full part in any UK resettlement programme for Ukrainians displaced by the disgraceful actions of Russia. There are various donation schemes up and running across the country, and we extend our thanks to those who are committing themselves to this task. We are also recognising that the quickest way to get aid to Ukraine is through financial support, and members and residents can find the relevant information by visiting our website. The Council is reviewing its financial affairs to ensure that if we have arrangements in place that are beneficial to Russia, these are closed. The conflict is brutal and is likely to continue. It is uniting the world to oppose aggression from authoritarian states. Our support for Ukraine will be unwavering, and we call on Russia to withdraw all armed forces with immediate effect. Thank you, members.
Chair, it's a point of order, Chair. As members, are we allowed to say anything?
Sorry, I'm going to start the meeting now. So that is my statement. That's my statement at the start of the meeting. I'm now going to start the meeting. Thank you very much, members.
Can I make a statement that I am in protest going to leave this meeting if I can't? I live with the Ukrainian, and if you're stopping elected members from speaking and voicing an opinion about the situation, I am going to leave this meeting in protest. Can I be clear about it?
You've spoken with Councillor Watt's choice.
That's your choice, Councillor. So I'm going to start the meeting. Thank you. Right, the meeting is started. Apologies for absence. We'll go round to each of the leaders. Richard?
I have apologies from Brian Jones, sir.
Thank you very much. Dimitri?
Apologies from Councillor Tudor Thomas.
Thank you. Councillor Joe Watkins? Thank you. Councillor Simon Howarth?
I do have apologies from Frances Taylor, Councillor Taylor. She's trying to get into the meeting and I would tell her to just dial because she can dial if she can't get on somebody. So I will try and get her on as quickly as possible. Right?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 2, declarations of interest.
Judicial interest, and that'll be on point 6A, and it's the motion on the Welsh Ambulance Service, and I believe I can't be involved in the discussion and I'm unable to vote.
Thank you, Councillor Breakborough, for that. Moving on to 3, public questions. We haven't had any notification of any public questions. Moving on to 4, chairman announcements and receipt of petitions. We've received 3 petitions. The first coming from Guppy, and Councillor Sarah Jones will present this.
Thank you, Chair. I'm presenting this petition on behalf of our dear friend, Councillor Peter Clark. Peter worked tirelessly, as we all know, for the Guppy Vow Award, and I know he would have fully supported the petition that we've received today. The petition is requesting a speed limit reduction on 2 sections of road, a 40-mile limit to be introduced in the section of road from Usk to Langstone, where it passes through the junctions into Llantrissant Village, and a 20-mile-an-hour zone for the full length of the inner village road in Llantrissant. The justification of this is around the increase in the number of families that now reside in this village, the fact that we have a number of rural businesses, a large equestrian business and farm businesses on this road, and a busy popular church as well. The residents are keen that I promote this to you today, Mr Chair, and they've also asked if we can continue to look at different safeguarding steps in the interim, so that includes additional signage and road safety measures prior to, hopefully, the introduction of these speed limits. So I present this to you today, Mr Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Jones, for that. And I confirm receipt. Councillor Richard John.
Thank you. So I have two petitions that I've passed on to you today. Firstly, I'm passing on a petition that was sent to me from Kate Corkin from Abergavenny Road Club in favour of the Velo Park in Abergavenny. So it's signed by 500 people calling on this council to support the plans that were before Planning Committee on Tuesday and before Cabinet yesterday on the Abergavenny Velo Park. And secondly, I've presented a petition signed by 1,559 local people who share our concerns about the Welsh Ambulance Service Trust's plans to withdraw the rapid response vehicles from Chepstow and Monmouth ambulance stations. And I'll say a bit more about that later on in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor John, for that. Okay, so before we move on to further business, what I would like to say is that this will be the last meeting for a number of councillors who won't be standing again for the upcoming election, and so we thought it was just quite nice for us to hand over to the chairs, to the leaders of each of the groups, to say a few words about the members that won't be standing again. So, Councillor John first. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And firstly, I'd like to associate myself with the comments you made a few minutes ago. And absolutely, we will do all we can to help. It's been an extraordinary 5 years, the challenges of which none of us could have foreseen when we became elected members in May 2017. Today, we think in particular of our absent friends and our very dear friends David Dovey and Peter Clark. We think of them with great affection today. Their losses are felt very keenly by my group, and both Steph and Jan remain very close members of our council group family. Throughout the challenges of the last 5 years, from the pandemic to flooding to international crises, I've been really inspired by the volunteers across our county, as well as by our officers, so many of whom have gone above and beyond to keep our services running, to protect our most vulnerable from isolation, and to save lives. I'm really proud of so many things that we've achieved over the last 5 years, but I'll save you a party political broadcast today. But many of the greatest achievements that we've delivered from this chamber and also virtually have been secured by political groups working together and putting our political differences aside. It's been a real privilege these last 5 years to spend them with all of you as a friend and a colleague. I joined this council as one of 17 new members in 2017. The 2017ers have contributed hugely to the transition of this council from one 25 years ago that was almost exclusively older white men to what it is today, and to hopefully what it will be in May. And I really hope we can become the first council in Wales to have a 50-50 gender balance. And I can assure you that certainly for my part, my party will be putting forward a genuinely diverse field of candidates, half of whom are women. I'd really like to thank the members of my group who have been the best team of individuals to work with. They're not colleagues, they're friends, and a number of my group are standing down after years of service to their residents, including Brian Jones and Brian Strong. I thank them for their enormous contribution to our county, and we're all going to really miss working with them. Likewise, Laura Jones is standing down to focus on her new role in the Senedd and representing us and the rest of South East Wales, and we really look forward to continuing to work with her. But I do, however, want to pay tribute to one individual in particular, a man who's been a towering figure in local government in Wales, who's served the people of Portskewitt with distinction for 25 years. As a cabinet member, led a major school renewal programme and was leader of this council for 13 years. Peter Fox has been a great personal support, particularly to me and Sarah, and we will miss his wise counsel in this chamber. But he's already giving Monmouthshire great support in his new role as an Assembly member, and we really look forward to continuing to work with him. I know that there are colleagues in other groups who are standing down, and I thank you too for your years of service, including the Leader of the Opposition. We've had our differences on a number of issues, but when it's come to the crunch, on issues like the future of CENCOM, on our investment portfolio, we're really grateful for having had the opportunity to work together. We don't know which members will return after the election, and if my time here is limited to 5 years, then it's been a fantastic privilege to serve the residents, and I will always be grateful to the people of Mitchell-Troy for giving me the opportunity to work with all of you and to have represented them in this chamber. Forgive me if I don't wish every single member of this council luck, but I do wish you all well in whatever the future may hold for you. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor John. Councillor Petruni.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to start with saying goodbye and thanking for their years of service to David Dovey and Peter Clark, who we sadly lost over this term. Members of the opposition party, but incredible gentlemen, and gentlemen is the word, and their wisdom, although we didn't agree frequently, is sorely missed, and that's the kind of calibre of councillor we need in the new term, and what Monmouthshire and its residents need, although maybe not the same political party, if you don't mind me saying. On that note, I also make note to the two Brians who are leaving. If I heard the leader speak, say that those names, tribute to their years of service. Again, gentlemen. And although we've had fierce rows, major disagreements, and it's got angry, to Councillor Peter Fox in recognition of his 25 years of service. Politics is a brutal game, and sometimes it's a wonderful service, but sometimes it's seen as a brutal game, and he has been leader of the council, and that tests yourself as a human being, and sometimes it takes a lot out of you, and I can only speak as a leader of the opposition. I go home sometimes absolutely exhausted, and I don't even run the council. So running a council with all the different internal politics, the external politics, making sure you deliver the services that need to be delivered to some of the most vulnerable people, I pay tribute to your service, and I pay tribute to your leadership. Of my own group, we're losing some wise heads as well. Councillor Jim Higginson, I think, who's been elected before I was born. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but there we go. Councillor Higginson's been a rock to me since I was elected, offered wise words, seen it all, done it all, and always manages to stay calm no matter what happens or is said. And I pay tribute to your service and what you've done for Caldecott. And equally, Councillor Dave Evans, who I can only describe, has had one of the most awful years on a personal level I can possibly think of any of us who would want to go through, or not want to go through. And I've often said to him, I'm here for him. I'm sure everyone here is here for him. And I pay tribute to your years of service as well, and to the people of Caldecott, and to your ward. And our hearts and our thoughts are with you all the time, Dave. So I pay tribute to that. And to myself, all I would say is I actually support the leader's agenda on female candidates, and I know that the Labour slate will be more women than men going into the election cycle, and we'll see what the election results bring. But we're trying on our side to have a more balanced chamber. So that's all you can do, is put the candidates in and let the public decide. And I would like to say, although I've been probably annoying, I've tried to provide a level of scrutiny, albeit robust, at times, throughout the 10 years I've been elected councillor, which is a bit mind-blowing. And I've tried to do it as as the democratic tradition dictates, is where you've got to be robust and tough with the people who hold power, and that's never more evident than you've seen in Ukraine and in Russia, where you have to hold people who are in power to account, and they might not like it and they have the right to defend themselves, but it's important whoever the next leader of the opposition is in the new term that they take up that mantle and give it full gusto, because we should celebrate democracy, and even for its pitfalls and its backbiting and its aggressive nature, sometimes it's the best system we have, and I've tried to live up to that standard. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Petrini. Councillor Simon Howarth.
Yes, and thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon, members and senior officers, and to you, Chair, as well. Yes, it's where's the 5 years gone? It's been a very, very quick 5 years, even though we've had 2 years of pandemic. Every one of us has been working extremely hard in trying to resolve things and deliver public services, and that's what all 43 of us are about. That's why we're elected, to deliver public services, and we must never lose the focus on delivering public services. We're not a business, we are a public service provider, and we will try our utmost to deliver public services, and it's one thing why I went into delivering public services to help people and try my best in delivering on a corporate side as well. Yes, I think most things have been said there. The Conservatives, I know many of you friends as well. I've got deepest thoughts for you, Peter and David, who are no longer with us, and other members from the years gone by as well. I still think about them. And I will always think about David and Peter there. Peter Fox, and leader of the council. I knew Peter well before I became a Monmouthshire County councillor. Got deepest respect for him. Brian Jones, Brian Strong, I've only known for a short time, but there are others who won't be with us, but I give you my kindest regards from the group as well and wish you very well. Labour group, I think, Dimitri, I've known you 5 years as a group, as our group. We've always had great respect for you as leaders of the Labour group, as opposition, and we've always tried to work together as groups as well. But one dear friend I do have there is Roger. He hasn't been mentioned. Roger, my dear mate there, he's been with me now 18 years, and we will all sadly miss Roger. He's red through and through, which is nothing wrong with it. I think I said about a Conservative member in the last meeting, Maureen, Councillor Powell, exactly the same. Politics, step it aside. Lovely people. Roger and his wife Maggie, and I know Maggie, she had lots of time for Monmouthshire County councillors, and Roger, and I wish you well in your retirement. Roger, you've worked extremely hard in delivering public services. But one of mine also is standing down, Councillor Blakeborough. And we all know Debbie, she's been here some time now, and I've got to say, you will not get a nicer person than Debbie. But I think when Debbie came on board as a member them years ago now, you wouldn't have had a better member in Select Committee. She'd and half given some thought as she were questioning them, and she could do it. That lady could do Select Committee, and she could cross-examine officers and ask the right questions as well, and put it the right way, make officers feel easy about answering them questions. But she was good, and we have really missed you, Deb, over the last few years. She's gone into the ambulance service, which I admire her for, and we wish her well in that. What a career to take forward into something that we all admire. Out there at the moment, with being one of the main principles in keeping this country going as well in the pandemic. So we wish you well, Deb, you and your life and your family as well as they're growing up there. We wish you great things there. And Lib Dems, I don't know whether Linda's standing again or not. Jess hasn't said yet because he'll be next in, but I wish Linda all the best if she's not coming back on board. But good luck to you all, and I wish you well, and all from the independent group. Anybody who doesn't come back, good health and look after yourselves. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Howarth. Councillor Joe Watkins. you with us?
Thank you very much. So to reiterate everyone else's thanks to the members who have given such long service, to Brian Jones, Brian Strong, Peter Fox, Laura Jones, Dimitri. And I have to say a personal thanks to the Caldecott members, to Dave and to Jim for their incredibly long service to the people of Caldecott. They have been amazing people to have in the community, and I know that they still have so much more to give. So thank you personally from the people of Caldecott to those two members in particular. And I would like to pay tribute today to Linda Guppy, who is not going to be standing for election this coming May. Linda's done 21 years of continuous service for this council, and as well as having been a Flying Start health visitor through the pandemic, which was one of the hardest times to try and actually look after the most vulnerable children within our community. She's worked tirelessly and has been an incredible councillor for her community in Roggett, helping to set up youth provision, to get funding for schools, and to be a governor of Roggett School and Caldecott School as well. So I would like personally to thank Linda for everything that she has done and all of the work that she has put in for her community over the last 21 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jo. Councillor Kevin Williams.
Thank you, Chair. I remember 5 years ago watching, I think it was Bob Hayward, Graham Down and that gang saying goodbyes, and I thought, oh, that's nice. I thought I might do that if I'm disappearing. So here I go. I've been on this now for 10 years. It's been a bit of an experience. I met some really, really nice people. I've met some clowns too, but I met some nice people. As a member of the newly independent group, as deputy leader, Alan's the leader. He wasn't elected, he just told me he was. So it's strange now sitting up here thinking that this could be the last meeting for me, but I just want to pay tribute as well to Peter Clark and Dave Dovey. Going back a few years, I wasn't very well, and those two people in particular actually made the effort to send me a card to the house and ask how I was and whatever. And I mean, Dave, a great guy, he was an Arsenal fan, so he couldn't read that bad. And he was converted from a Tottenham fan as well, so even better. Along with the members who've sort of, I've known for a long time, Councillor Peter Fox, I mean, I knew Peter before I even became a councillor. Remember people who closed our schools, remember that? So that's gone back a long time. So I just like to pay tribute to them. One of the things which I've enjoyed doing is continually battering on about turning the street lights off, and now we've got them back on. I think I can probably go to that councillor land in the sky and feel much happier. I'd like to thank everybody for the support that they've given me, from Chief Exec right down. I'd like to thank the local Labour Party, but I can't. So I'd just like to say, Arsene Wenger, goodbye, and I will miss you. Okay.
Kevin, thank you very much for that. And just before we go over to any of those members that wish to speak, Councillor David Dovey and Councillor Peter Clark will be always remembered in our hearts. And I'm going to propose that we put some benches at the front of the entrance in memory of them, and we'll be expending that out of my civic expenditure, because we haven't spent anything out of my civic expenditure for this year. So that'll be in memory of those. Brian Jones, Brian Strong, Laura Jones, Peter Fox, Jim Higginson, Dave Evans, Dimitri Petruni, Roger Harris, Debbie Blakeborough, Linda Guppy, Kevin Williams. You've all been the foundation stones of this council. You leave us a council in fantastic stead, and you are the foundations. You have been the rocks that put us here. And so as a new councillor coming in, we've always looked up to all of that experience, wealth of experience, and that knowledge base that takes us forward as a council will continue in a good vein. I know that Peter Fox would like to come and just say a few words. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. I've been logged out, so I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not. And this is many of our last days in this chamber, and it was so important for me to be able to come here today to experience this building and this chamber and this camaraderie one more time. And I'm really glad I came. And thank you so much for everybody who has said some nice things. It's been an absolutely wonderful journey over many years with many ups and downs, and many of you have been on those various journeys with me, and certainly Kevin on the school journey, Roger, Jim, we've done so many things, everybody actually, and everybody who is going, we've done so much together, good things, and Dimitri, I wish you well. Yes, we've had our ups and downs, but that's what you have to do. We as an executive have to have strong opposition, and I give you credit, you've been strong opposition, and when likes of myself got revved up, it was because you were doing your job properly, and that's proper scrutiny and challenge, and I thank you for that, because it makes the council a better council when you have all of that challenge and scrutiny. This is a wonderful organisation. It's a shame that it's been, had to operate as every other has across the UK in a strange way over the last 2 years, but hopefully we can move forward. It's sad that we're having to move forward under such a dark cloud with what's happening across the world, but I really thank the Chairman for his words and that commitment from the Council to help those people who are going to be needing so much help over the coming months and years. As I said, this is a fantastic organisation. It's blessed with many excellent people, not just in this chamber. Some officers are in this chamber, but there's a whole range of officers right across this council that make this such a wonderful place, and it's been like a second family to me for many years, and I know it will go on from strength to strength, especially under the leadership it has at the moment, and I am biased. I hope that leadership continues on after the elections. I wish everybody well in the coming elections, those who are standing, and those who aren't, I wish you all the very best in whatever you do, and just a big thank you for your dedication and contribution to public life for so many years. You're wonderful people, so thank you very much.
Members, to our upper sixth. Okay, members, thanks ever so much for that, and you will all be greatly missed, you know that, but we'll carry on with the business for today. So we're at 5 on the agenda, 5.1, Revenue and Capital Budgets 2022-2023 and Council Tax Resolution, pages 1 to 14 in the pack. Hand over to you, Councillor Phil Murphy.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And Mr. Chairman, Cabinet went out to consultation with the draft budget proposals that required £863,000 worth of revenue support and a proposed increase in council tax of 3.95%. This despite a considerably better provisional settlement than we have had for many years. However, Monmouthshire remains the lowest funded council on a per capita basis in Wales. The settlement, although welcomed, was insufficient to meet the significant unavoidable pressures that the Council is facing, and where we have been able to, we have mitigated these. Savings in directorates were much lower than were achieved in previous budget rounds, reflecting the considerable difficulty in finding service redesign efficiencies, with so much identified and saved in previous years, and at a time when the Council's focus has been on supporting its communities through the pandemic and dealing with the significant demands that are becoming evident as we move forward. Subsequently, we have now had the final settlement, which has given us circa £3,000 extra. This will require a marginal adjustment to the budget report before Council in 2.4a and b. Cabinet made it clear that the consultation period would end on the 16th of February and that we would be unable to consider any alternative proposals after that date due to impact and equality assessments that are required to be carried out. To date, no alternative proposals have been made. The final budget proposals look to support the priorities of the Council and the challenges that face our county and society more generally. Specifically, all pay and pension-related spending in schools up to 3%, increasing demands with children with ALN, increasing complexity around looked after children, the growing impact of an ageing population and with the challenges that result from a fragile and unsustainable social care market, significant pressures in the passenger transport unit and within recycling and waste, responding to the needs of the homeless, and further investment in highways and transport infrastructure. We will continue to be at the forefront on the climate change agenda. We will also continue to work on narrowing health inequalities, social care reform, helping children catch up following the interruption to education by the pandemic, our schools building programme, mental health and well-being in adults and children. Mr. Chairman, there were numerous opportunities for consultation responses. There was a broad understanding of the pressures and issues that the Council face, both pandemic and otherwise related. However, there was considerable concern about the level of the proposed increase in council tax. Concerns were also raised regarding homelessness, pressures, potential income losses in our leisure centres, and the impact on income from our commercial investment portfolio. Following on from the helpful consultation responses, and after a great deal of re-examination of the original proposals, for which Cabinet is very grateful to senior officers and their staff, the following revisions have been made. The proposed increase in council tax to be ratified by Council today will be reduced to 2.95%. Further investment will be made into the capital programme to meet our highways infrastructure and housing needs, and where benefits will be derived over the longer term, funded from a mixture of grant and borrowing. The Council's borrowing costs remain sustainable within the context of the authority's overall revenue budget, and the key indicator of this affordability is contained within our prudential indicators, which Council will approve in the report that follows this one. These show that our borrowing costs as a proportion of the overall revenue budget remain broadly consistent with recent years and over the medium-term financial plan at just over 6%. Following a revision in expectations around tenancy levels, the pressure has reduced significantly in our commercial investment portfolio, with the overall portfolio now only projected to fall slightly short of the previously budgeted net income levels. Given the alterations, there is no longer any one-off reliance on reserves, therefore maintaining the level of the Council's general reserve in the event of significant pressures in future budget rounds. This will be reinforced by a now forecast underspend in the current year of circa £3 million, which will look to provide additional reserve cover against the budgetary risks that remain around the fragile social care market, footfall not returning to our leisure centres as anticipated, and the potential for significant homelessness costs to be met as the Council looks to secure additional temporary accommodation. Mr. Chairman, the anticipated underspend in the current year underlines the fact that for the whole of this administration, we have maintained strong budgetary discipline and always stayed within budget. Mr. Chairman, before I finish, can I thank Peter Davis, Jonathan Davis and their teams for the considerable amount of work that has gone into this process that has allowed these final budget proposals to be presented to Council today. I propose that recommendations are taken as read. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Murphy. Councillor Dimitri Petruni, please.
I don't know if that needs to be seconded first, Chair.
Don't need a seconder for a report.
Great. If you just give me a bit of indulgence, I was remiss of me to not talk about Councillor Roger Harris. Down to my scruffy writing, Roger. I have written your name down, but I can't read my own writing. Absolute. I'll use the word legend. both in the group, but in the party, and his wonderful wife Maggie, who I can't describe to you how wonderful those people are. His years of service and his and Maggie's support to Roger and her in her own right in the community work they do. I pay tribute to that, and I just wanted to put that on record and recorded. And actually to Kevin as well. I'll say it. I'll miss you, Kevin. I'll miss you a lot. On the budget, be unsurprised, we are not going to support the budget as proposed by the Conservative group, ostensibly for several reasons, which I'll outline now. First off, we welcome the council tax below inflation rate. That is welcomed, and we would like to thank the Welsh Labour government for your ability to drop it. Ostensibly for the higher settlement you've received, you were asking for more money, you got more money from the Welsh Labour government, but it's still never enough, is it? But you got more money, and also for the flexibility provided by the Welsh Labour government in your capitalisation directive, which allows you to bring capital receipts forward to use as revenue cost to offset revenues in year, but it's a short-term measure to help you and all councils through the worst of it. But that ability, which has saved you, if I've read the paperwork correctly, 450,000 or circa that amount, to offset council tax. So I pay tribute to the Welsh Labour government for their support during these years. In terms of the budget detail, we have major concerns of the fees and charges up rates in particular areas. For example, burial services. It's more expensive for various services relating to burials. It's going up by 3.1%, and it's more expensive to die in this county as a result of this budget, and we won't be supporting those increases. And over the years, there's nothing in the budget, and I'm sure Councillor Murphy will say to me you didn't propose it, although I have proposed it for the last 3 or 4 years running, and it's always been swiftly rejected, around the second homes increase. The Welsh Government actually, a couple of days ago, was it yesterday, announced major changes to that policy, i.e. enabling local authorities to increase second home council charges, as well as curbing the ability for people to effectively tax avoid that tax. The council should seriously look at that policy again. I didn't bring it forward because I knew it would be rejected again, but we can't support it because it's not in there. And I want to emphasise this point. I was doing some research around housing, and in Monmouthshire, homelessness has shot up 372% since the start of the pandemic. Out of the top 10 most expensive neighbourhoods in Wales, 5 are in Monmouthshire, including St Arvan's, Trellick, Llanover. St Arvan's, over the 5-year term, has seen a 56% increase in house prices. It's true across Wales there's a housing shortfall, but in Monmouthshire it's more acute. There is not enough houses to meet demand, and prices are reflecting that. Rents are skyrocketing. You ask anyone in this county about rent. And although the second homes increased tax will not remedy the situation entirely, it will be a helpful tool in curbing people who live outside the county, or mainly outside of the county for most of the year, in really thinking about whether they want to have a second home in Monmouthshire. And if they sell, that increases the housing supply in the county. And I seriously urge whoever's back in the new council to really seriously look at this policy and think about increasing it. And because it's not in this budget, we will not support the budget. In addition, the increases in domiciliary care charges that focus on, inevitably charges in particular services focus costs on particular cohorts, as opposed to putting the burden on every cohort. So we won't be supporting any domiciliary care increased charges, given, and we're not going to go over it, the pressures in that area. So on that basis, Chair, the Labour Group will be opposing the budget. Thank you.
Thank you you very much. Councillor Joanne Watkins, please.
Thank you very much. I'm not proposing any amendments or actually any direct challenges to today's budget. I am, however, going to flag the really persistent and worrying trend in the increasing cost of children's services. I've been on the CYP committee for the last 5 years, and I've been made aware that these increases in costs are steadily growing across our county, both for looked after children and for additional learning needs provision. And that trend is also reflected nationally as well. I am quite deeply concerned that the cost of living crisis is going to put more and more families under great strain, and this will then also affect their family relationships. As a county, we must do more to address the poverty that is actually here within Monmouthshire. There are huge inequalities between our more wealthy communities and our poorer communities, and this has an effect on the entire lives of those children who are brought up in our county. And I am saying this now for the future administration, whoever that might be, that this must be a key task that we address in the next council term. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Roger Harris, please. Councillor Harris. Roger, I'll come back to you. I'll go to Councillor Jeremy Becker, please.
Thank you, Chair. Hopefully everybody can hear me. It was not so relevant as to put in an alternative proposal towards our planning and housing strategy and our investment strategy for housing, because our LDP hadn't been delayed at the point when I was thinking about it. And plus, I wasn't aware of a certain few facts, which I'm hoping in the future will be able to, the next council will be able to take forward. We have an opportunity, because the LDP has been delayed, to use legislation which has been available to us since 2008 to demand higher energy efficiency on the homes that are built within our county. That has always been within our gift, but it was never put into the LDP. So as a result, we couldn't use it as a lever. Now, homes that are built to higher energy efficiency, if they're built to net zero standards, can actually also be financed through much lower rates of interest on green finance. So we have a crossover which is coming between the financial viability and the commercial capability to build net zero housing in this county, which is well ahead of the standards that are being currently set and would serve our communities better. It also, and you can bet your bottom dollar, if I am lucky enough to be in the next term, I will be putting an alternative proposal for the budget to flesh this out. But it also means that we could use structures like community land trusts in order to provide a housing mix that actually works for the people in our communities, rather than building dormitories for commuters. So it's less of a challenge to what we're doing at the moment and more of a flag that because of the delay of the LDP, we actually have a massive opportunity to change direction on this if we move quickly.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Roger Harris, can you come in now?
Can you hear me now, Chair?
Yep, you're loud and clear. Yep.
Oh, good, yeah. Technical fault my end. I was trying to say that I'm going to miss my friend Phil Murphy telling me for the 19th time how bad we get served by the Welsh government, but maybe he won't be doing it next time. Who knows? Because of what might be happening in May. But again, our leader Dimitri has pointed out why we won't be voting for the budget, so I won't need to say anything more there. But what I would like to say is thank you all for those lovely kind words that have been spoken, and to recognise my good lady as well. She's made it absolutely certain that I could carry on for 18 years. You know, we're going to have a lovely, we hope can have a lovely long retirement, but we're working on that in any case. So I have enjoyed every minute of the 18 years, and I mean that sincerely. And you know, we as councillors interact often and usually in a friendly way, but I really must say how fortunate we are as a council to have the calibre of officers that we have in the authority. They've never failed me. They've looked after me when I've asked them to do things for my constituents, and they're in the background. They're obviously a huge, vital part of the organisation. So I thank them, and I thank all of you. But I'll be seeing all of you again one way or another. Don't you worry about that. Thank you, Chair.
We look forward to it, Roger. Thank you very much. I'm aware that Councillor Tony Eason has raised his hand. There is a chat function or raised hand function in the chat bar, so if members could use the raised hand function if possible. But I'm aware that some members don't always have that ability. So, Councillor Tony Eason, please.
Sorry, Chair, I used the wrong hand function. What I got to say, I'm not quite sure whether what I want to say is in this paper or the next paper, but I can't find it anywhere. But what I do find is that with the support of the Welsh Labour government, we are now running at a reserves of over £20 million. Also, the Welsh Labour government has bailed most of the schools out, where all the schools bar one has got serious difficulties, and of course all the others are now in surplus. But it brings me to the final question, where I believe that the Welsh Labour government supported Monmouthshire County Council. The Westminster Tory government has not supported Monmouthshire County Council, in particular the Levelling Up Fund. I see nothing in these papers how we're going to go forward with that, but I believe that if there's a possibility that the view is that we will get something from Levelling Up Fund next year, I would suggest in the capital budgets and the capital schemes that we find ways of bringing forward some of the reserves into Caldecott to work on that leisure centre. Because if we don't start working on a leisure centre now, we'll never work on a leisure centre. So if there's confidence in the administration at the moment, and take it forward to whatever the administration may be in May, I would like to see something in these capital papers to take money forward to start work on Caldecott Leisure Centre. This is what the public are after. They were at Caldecott Town Council last week. I won't say screaming, but they are very concerned. So we've got to do something to use some of the money that we've got sitting around at the moment for Caldecott to do the leisure centre. I don't know whether it's right, which paper it comes up in, but there's nothing mentioned in here about it at all, but it needs to be priority as far as I'm concerned. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Simon Howarth, please.
Thank you, Chairman. And just following on the budget now, on the revenue and capital, a couple of pointers which have been picked up by ourselves, reference to this these budgets. We welcome the decrease in the cost that's been given to the overall budget mandate there of reducing it to 2.95%. But there are some concerns there within the proposals, and I'd just like to touch on a few of them there. The one is the die ash back, which was budgeted for within the documents there. I mean, we've got no business case for that, and the monies which have been put forward there, they're going to come nowhere near what they're proposing. It's a major issue around the county. We've got no business plan how we're going to handle private land. How we're going to do that, I do not know. I've had major issues in my area with trees, and the county has got it wrong. They've instructed people to take trees down. It's not been their responsibility. It's been the council's responsibility. So what I'd be looking for within that is a business case, how we're going to handle the die back ash. Just don't put a lump of money in there to manage that. There needs to be a proper business case. So I believe that will take some time to do, and I don't think we're going to see that in the next 12 months. So I think that needs real serious consideration by the cabinet member, Councillor Pratt, to do that. And I've had representation made from good sources about that as well. That is a crazy budget. You cannot budget for it. The other one issue which has been pointed out to me as well, the savings in waste, the CA sites. We went out to new contract, it says there, and we've come back with massive savings. But what is noticeable there is we've actually lost a day a week in the sites. The ratepayers of Monmouthshire have lost a day a week in their sites. We've lost 2 days per site, which is 6 days per week. So that's 52 weeks a year that actually we've taken away from people being able to use that site or them sites, which is a service. And as I said before, I came here to deliver public services, and using the CA sites is a public service. So the monies we've saved by reducing the running costs of them sites has taken that away from Monmouthshire. Use the CA site. Somebody wanted to go down there on today it was. They weren't allowed to go today. It's open today in Lamfoyce, Thursday and Friday. They couldn't go today, they could not book it today, and they cannot go Friday and they cannot go Saturday. And all we're reducing there is the capability and the capacity for people to use their public sites. So that's like saying we'll close the park down. We will restrict people using the park. So all we're doing is we're reducing the service by saving money, reducing services which are well respected and well used. And I find that derogatory and I find that patronising that actually we do that to the residents of Monmouthshire. I won't support the budget today. I've never supported the budget on the basis of I don't think we actually deliver that budget. If it's ever audited by the auditors, we never deliver on what we say. We tweak and move. I'm going to go to the capital budget now and the investment side of it. And it's one thing which really is riling me as members, and I'm sure opposition members, you'll feel the same as well. Every question we ask, do we ever get an answer to it? And I'll give you an example. In the investment committee, which we as members are representative of you as groups, I asked some time ago now for a breakdown of how much it actually costs us to deliver the investment committee and the portfolio. And that was last July. And I was assured in November by our chief executive, I would have a breakdown of how much actually it's costing us, because it is costing us to deliver investments and investment committee portfolios, right? So I put an assumption on that. Nobody gave me an answer to it. Nobody wants to do that. So I put an assumption of around approximately £150,000 to £180,000 it costs us in time and manpower to deliver the investments and the investment committees, to run them, to get them right. So I've put an assumption there about £150,000 to £180,000 in time and costs in doing that. Them investment committees are, at the moment, in my eyes, need to be reviewed and looked at. It's not working at the moment, and perhaps we offload them. As I said previous, me personally, I came into this to deliver public services. We aren't a business and we never will be a business. It's all right to borrow public money. And going back to the comments about the Welsh Government, they have got most councils out of a big hole with COVID. And where's the money come from? Same as when we build and we borrow. It's our future generations are going to have to pay for all this. Same as the rebuilding of Kiev and Ukraine. Somebody's going to have to pay for all this in the end. So I will not support the budget on this basis. I don't think we deliver what we say in the papers. We never deliver. And I'll leave it there, Chairman. Thank you. I'm sure other members will want to say things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Debbie Blakeborough, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'd like to start by saying that I do welcome the change in terms of reducing the council tax from 3.95 to 2.95, reducing it by that 1%. And I do welcome that because I think it is hard times for people. You've got the increase of national insurance, living expenses, fuel prices. I think everybody's going to suffer with that. So I think it's a good move to get it down to 2.95. But just a couple of my questions on that is how much is that 1%? And where in the budget will we find that 1%? So it's good to reduce it, but just where is it covered? Yeah, really, one of the big areas I wanted to highlight is the investment portfolio. Councillor Howard has said a lot of stuff about it. I think the investment portfolio, if it is a proper business, should be costed and funded separately. And it's not. There's blurred edges. It blurs and bleeds into Monmouthshire County Council's services. And I'm just concerned that officers' time, which is a substantial amount of money, has not been included in the costs. So I guess if you're looking at what is being said is that the investment portfolio has a profit of 550,000 over, I think it's 3 to 4 years. So you're looking at about 138,000 profit per year. But if you've not included the officer time in that and probably other things, I suspect we're running at a loss. So I think we're losing money. And if you're a private business, you take your own risks with your own money. We are risking public money. And it kind of begs the question, should we carry on with this? Because I don't believe councils are best placed to risk public money in trying to make profits, in trying to run a business. Because at the end of the day, if we lose out, it's the public money that'll just bail the project out, and I think this is what's happening. Councils are there to provide services, social care, education, waste and recycling, leisure facilities. That's what we're here for, and to spend the money wisely. I do think that this investment portfolio, it's been an embarrassing failure, really. I think our job is to provide environments for private businesses to develop and grow. That's what we're about. So I guess on the back of that, I believe we have lost money. As I say, I think figures are being massaged to look like there is profits being made, but I don't think that is the case. And I'd like to look at what lessons have we learned from this. COVID has had an effect on that, but that is the point, isn't it? It's a risk. Everything you do when building a business is a risk, and we can't afford to take risks with other people's money. So what lessons have we learned? What's the rescue package for this project? And is there an idea that will just abandon the whole idea and just focus on using money wisely to provide services for the residents? Thank you.
Thank you. I'll come back at the end and ask the Cabinet Member to answer those questions at the end. Councillor Jane Pratt, please.
Thank you very much, Chairman. And can I thank the Cabinet Member, Councillor Murphy and Pete Davis for this exceptional budget that we have before us today, which is delivering for the people of Monmouthshire. And again, I welcome that it's, although we really would like to see no increase at all, we're very pleased that we've been able to just have a 2.95 increase below the rate of inflation. Just coming back to the comments made by Councillor Howarth, I haven't received any correspondence from Councillor Howarth on the points he raised, but I do feel that I should respond to them. We do have a plan for dealing with ash dieback. We have a tree officer, and I'm sure that officers would be only too happy to furnish him with the details of our strategy regarding ash dieback, which is a serious issue, not only for us, but for every council in the UK. On his second point on waste centres, there is plenty of capacity at our waste centres. We do run a tight ship. We do not waste taxpayers' money in this authority, and there is no point in us opening every hour and having chaps on the gantry twiddling their thumbs. We make sure that we are being resourceful. So we have 3 waste centres. We're very fortunate in this county to have 3, and other counties only have 1. So I think we do an excellent job. We have a fantastic curbside collection service, and most things should be collected there. We have a very successful green waste collection. I was chatting to Laura this week. We've already got 10,000 customers signed up to the green bin scheme. So many of our customers are making use of that. So I have to say that I do not agree with the comments made by the leader of the independent group. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Pavia, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll keep my comments brief. Obviously, I do welcome the Welsh Government's uplift. Top of the pile for the first time ever. It's taken a global pandemic to do it, mind. But we certainly do welcome I certainly welcome the additional investment for schools. But we shouldn't forget where that significant amount of that money came from. It was from the UK government supporting the other devolved administrations to get through the pandemic. A significant amount of money that Welsh Government is still sitting on. So, you need to challenge your colleagues in Cardiff Bay to ensure all that COVID money is properly spent. As I said, I welcome the money for schools, but let's be absolutely clear. The impact of this global pandemic on our children and young people has been disproportionate to protect the adult population. And it's going to take many, many years to unwind the damage that has been done. And the additional money that's been earmarked this far is certainly not going to touch a side. So we're going to need investment on that scale year on year for at least probably 5 years plus. 2 other points, the funding formula. I obviously welcome Councillor Peter Fox and Councillor Laura Jones, their endeavours to force the Welsh Government to review the funding formula. They brought forward a motion just before half term, again ignored by Welsh Government. They're not interested in changing the funding formula because it doesn't suit them. It doesn't suit them. It doesn't suit the other Labour councils in Wales. And finally, in terms of council tax, and I've said this on the backbenches, council tax does need to be reformed. And again, I welcome this on the Welsh Labour Government's agenda now with the agreement with Plaid Cymru. But I have to say, from the research that's been done thus far, and it's all published online, you can see the Institute for Fiscal Studies report that was done 18 months ago. The changes that will impact on this county, again, will be disproportionate. We'll feel an even worse hit than the current settlement and the current formula, council tax formula that's in place. So, I welcome the review to look at changes to council tax, but what's been put on the table thus far will really impact us. So I hope, again, Labour colleagues will reflect on that and send the information back to their colleagues in Cardiff Bay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bob Greenland, please.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, may I congratulate Councillor Murphy on this budget presentation. And I know the work that he has put in with the officers to enable us to bring forward this much lower tax increase in what is an extremely difficult year for our residents. So well done to Phil and to all the officers for that work. And yes, I must acknowledge the improvement that we've had from the Welsh Government in the settlement that we've had, but it still leaves us as by far the lowest funded council in Wales, and as Councillor Pavia has said, it is because of the formula. But I am convinced that with 2 excellent advocates in Councillor Fox and Councillor Laura Jones down at the south, we can begin again to make progress on developing the argument that this formula is a disbenefit to authorities like us in rural areas of Wales. So I look forward in future in a better increase than we've even had this time. And let's take us off the floor of the funding for councils in Wales. And I did really want to just come on to the remarks made by Councillor Howarth and Councillor Blakeborough about the investment committee, because the fact is they have asked for figures in terms of the costs of senior officer time, but senior officer time is not divided into different projects, and our senior officers cover hundreds of different projects, and under none of those projects is their time divided out. So it's an impossible figure to give it. But when we had the last investment committee, we looked at it, and I think that it was the majority view of everybody there that given the fact that we've been through some incredibly difficult times in the last couple of years in terms of our investment portfolio, we have managed to wash our faces during that period of time. Now, we don't know what's ahead, but it is to be hoped that there are better times ahead. And I am sure that those investments will, in the long term, show that we can actually create a fund which will enable us to provide better services for the residents of Monmouthshire. And don't forget, they always like to focus on things which, like the leisure park, which it actually is really picking up now, as it happens. But don't forget, we've also got investments like the cattle market and the solar farms, which are huge investments that we've made and are paying dividends into this council, reducing the need for council tax to be hiked. So I don't share the issues that Councillor Blakeborough, and even she hasn't been able to evidence anything, just saying, well, I think it's a little bit hazy on the edges. Well, no, it isn't. If you're in the investment committee, all the information that we've been asked for has been provided. It's not hazy. It's down there in all the figures, and we are doing incredibly well under difficult circumstances. And I thank the officers involved in the investment committee in the work that they are doing. So just finally, I welcome this budget, and I will be supporting it. Thank you, Chair.
May I just follow on from Councillor Greenland's comments, reference to information. I mean, I've asked 3 times for this information from July 2021, and it's not been obtainable. And I keep reminding officers, and my last reminder was in November 2021, and that was guaranteed by the Chief Executive. He would supply that information. It wasn't that we can't give you anything or we can't do that. I asked for it in November 2021, and Paul Matthews, our Chief Executive, said to me, with others there, he would give me a breakdown of costing, how much it is costing us to run this portfolio and portfolios. I've had nothing.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Howarth. Moving on then to Mr. Phillip White, and Mr. White, can I ask you to introduce yourself as well, please?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Chair. I'm Phillip White. I'm the lay member of the Governance and Audit Committee, so I'm not a councillor, but neither am I an officer of the council. I was asked to attend the council meeting this afternoon, and I'm not really sure about the protocol of this, Chair, since I'm not an elected member. But I was asked to attend this meeting of the council this afternoon to report on considerations of the Governance and Audit Committee about a paper presented by Mr. Peter Davis, who's a responsible finance officer, on the assessment of the robustness of the budget process and the adequacy of reserves. Now, this is nothing about spending proposals in the budget. The Governance and Audit Committee doesn't consider that. This is really just about whether the assessment that was made by the responsible finance officer was sufficiently robust and whether the reserves are adequate. If it's all right with you, Chair, I'll just continue to make a few points.
Yeah, please do, Philip, please.
Yeah. We had a detailed paper presented to the committee which included 10 recommendations, all of which were accepted by the committee. The first one asked the committee to scrutinise and endorse the responsible financial officer's opinion of the robustness of the budget process and the adequacy of reserves. In support of this was a detailed annex setting out the responsible officer's opinion. It was a live streamed meeting, and so the proceedings of the committee would be available to anyone who wanted to look into it. But Mr Davis made it clear that without support from the Welsh Government, especially in the light of the COVID emergency, it would not have been possible to maintain reserves at the levels achieved, and that there remained a longer term trend for pressure on reserves, which would require careful management in future. In the paper and in the Governance and Audit Committee's discussions, it was made clear that there remain significant risks for funding, including potential increased demand for social services. Another risk is around the impact of future wage settlements, which would have to be implemented by the authority. And there was considerable overlap between this paper and other papers considered by the committee, specifically in regard to Treasury Management, which is the next item on your agenda today. The committee was informed of the latest views on these issues. In regard to Treasury Management, we're asking about the impacts of inflation and rising interest rates. The committee was informed of the latest views on these issues and the steps being taken to mitigate their impact where possible. In discussion of the recommendations made, the following issues were raised: level of schools reserved and future plans for dealing with any shortfalls, the use of capital receipts for revenue expenditure, which were not considered sustainable, and risks arising from other developments such as homelessness. So it's really to note that the Governance and Audit Committee, having considered the very detailed information provided in the Responsible Finance Officer's paper and in the light of other information available to the committee on the day, accepted all the recommendations made and therefore endorsed the Responsible Finance Officer's opinion on the robustness of the budget process and the adequacy of reserves, which allows for updates to be provided to Cabinet and the full Council as required. That's all I wanted to say, but it's really about the process of considering the budget and the adequacy of reserves.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm going to go now to Councillor Sarah Jones, and then I'll refer back to the Cabinet member. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. It's just to pick up on a couple of points that members have made, and I won't go on because it'll reiterate some of the points that Cabinet members have come in on. But the first one, just briefly around the Investment Committee and the portfolio. Councillor Greenland has articulated very well the important work that committee does and the benefits it can have. I think we have to remember that investments that we make are not a short-term solution, that it's looking at a longer-term vision. And by risk of not doing this, we run the risk of our services being at risk, because this is something we're doing to sustain their long-term future. And it is a two-pronged approach. We are looking through the work that we do under enterprise to create the right environment for businesses to want to come and invest in the county, but at the same time that has to sit alongside some of the activity that we've been pursuing through the investment portfolio and the investment committee. And also, as Councillor Green had said, it's important to note that the committee itself, it's not just about our own portfolio, it's about some of those other activities that we're involved in. The last committee meeting, we looked at broadband and the fantastic work that's happened there through the commercial loan activity, and I think that's delivering real benefit on the ground for our residents. Just moving on to a point that Councillor Howarth made around the impact of spending during the last couple of years, in particular in terms of COVID and the impact that's going to have on all our residents in years to come. I think we do also have to recognise that we in Wales are at a starting point that's very different to other UK nations, because rightly or wrongly the restrictions in Wales have been a lot more tighter, more restrictive, and that impact on businesses is going to mean that they've got a bit of a further way to go before we can see recovery, and that's clearly going to have an impact over the next few months, next 12 months. And the final point I just wanted to make was in relation to Councillor Eason. He mentioned about Caldecott Leisure Centre, a very valid point. We're all in support of moving forward with Caldecott Leisure Centre, and the Cabinet report I took through yesterday talked to the fact that we are going to put in, again, levelling up fund, a further bid. Again, we're going to refine this after the feedback we've received from civil servants and ensure that we do all we can to get success for Caldecott.
Okay, thank you. I did say that would be the final speaker. So now back to you, Councillor Phil Murphy.
Thank you, Chair, and I'll just go through the points as people spoke, if I may. Councillor Petruni's points, fees and charges. Yes, I agree that it would have been lovely not to have had to put them up, but we did in fact keep them as low as we possibly could, and where it was possible we didn't put them up. The latest announcement regarding the second homes, yes, it's just come through. We have picked up on it. We have actually had a look at it. It came far too late to discuss regarding the current budget, and in any event we wouldn't be able to bring anything in until 24-25. But that's one for the next administration, I think. I think it's fair to say that with the tightening up of the regulations regarding swapping onto business rates and then claiming relief, that's has opened that discussion up. So that's something, as I say, for the next administration to evaluate. With regards to housing, well, of course, Welsh Government's stopping us building with phosphates and their planning policy. So we've got lots of houses in the pipeline that we just can't give planning permission for. With regards to the point by Councillor Harris, yes, I'll miss you too, Roger. But the point with regards in Tony Eason with regards to reserves, you'll be aware that we did actually top up reserves in the last 2 years, and we will again this year if everything works out the way we expect it to. But we do have to keep that minimum reserve position. So you know, we can't go and spend £20 million. That's the point I'm trying to get over. Caldecott Leisure Centre has been mentioned just now. With regards to Ash Dieback, Councillor Pratt gave an explanation there, and it is in fact in several of the mandates that were put forward. With regards to the investment committee, there's a review of the investment committee annually and considered independently by the Governance and Audit Committee. And even despite the challenges of the pandemic, and next year with Welsh Government funding falling away, these investments still contribute significantly to maintaining frontline services. So if we disinvested, it would put some substantial pressure on the other finances of the county. With regards to the clarification that Councillor Howarth is looking for, well, as far as I'm concerned, he has received this clarification. It was confirmed again at the last meeting that officer time is met from our core budgets. Although we charge against investments the cost of advisors and agents, etc., that information can be provided if you want that specifically. But as far as I'm concerned, the other information's been given. With regards to the 1%, Debbie, it's 600,000. It was covered by additional grants and savings. But if you look in the Cabinet report, we've actually produced a table in there. The report that was before Council yesterday, there's a table that explains exactly how the difference has been made up. Yes, with the investment portfolio, there's been no losses. Jez Becker's point that I'm sure will be considered by the next administration, and with Joe's concerned about the trend on children's services and the cost of living, yes, and no doubt that will be looked at again by the next administration in whatever light it can be, given the financial circumstances at the time. So I think that pretty well covers everybody's points, Chair, and I think I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, members. I think we've had a good discussion on that, so I'm happy to go to the vote. The recommendations were in the agenda pack from page 1. It's at point 2, but they're from page 1 through to page 8. I'm going to ask Democratic Services to put a vote function for those recommendations now in the chat bar. Thank you. So for members, for everyone in that case, we have got 9 reports to get through today, so I want to restrict everyone to speaking just once, if that's possible, please. Okay, thank you very much, members. That is carried. Thank you. So moving on to the next agenda item is 5.2, 2022-2023 Capital Strategy and 2022-2023 Treasury Management Strategy. Councillor Phil Murphy, Cabinet Member for Resources, please.
Thank you, Chair. Certainly I lost it. I just retrieved it. So, the purpose of this report is to approve the capital and treasury management strategies, including the minimum revenue provision policy and borrowing and investment strategies for the 22-23 financial year. The report summarises and highlights the key areas relating to the strategies alongside those areas of key implications and risk resulting from it. So in the recommendations, the Council approves the capital strategy, which is found in Appendix 1. The Council approves the Treasury Management Strategy, which is also in Appendix 1, including the minimum revenue provision policy statement and the investment and borrowing strategies. Also in the recommendations are to approve the potential indicators. The Council agrees the Governance and Audit Committee should continue to review the Council's Treasury activities on behalf of the Council by receiving and scrutinising the mid-year report and year-end report, and also scrutinising the capital and treasury strategies before recommending to Council for improvement. The capital strategy sets out the longer-term context in which capital investment decisions are made and demonstrates how that the authority takes capital investment decisions that are in line with its corporate priorities. Give consideration to both risk, reward and impact, as well as properly taking account of stewardship, value for money, prudence, sustainability and affordability. The capital plans of the authority are inherently linked with the Treasury management activity it undertakes, and therefore this report is brought alongside the Treasury Management Strategy report. The main consideration arise from the capital strategy shown in Appendix 1 are summarised in this report. So this is a report that comes to us every year, Chair. It's a very detailed report. It has been through the Governance and Audit Committee, who've given it some scrutiny. So I think at that stage I'll leave it open. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. There is a raise hands function in the chat bar as well. Councillor Petruni.
Thank you, Chair. I will comment on the investment stuff because I think this is the proper agenda item to talk about it, and then I have a few questions if I may. On the investment committee, I'm hearing the independent leader and his councillors raise concerns. I initially proposed the investment committee as a principal means by which we could drive housing development through the council for two ostensible reasons. One is you could generate a revenue in the medium to long term, not in the short term, but also provide another avenue for affordable housing and social housing in this county, which I keep banging on about, but we need homes. And I talk about that for many different reasons, but principally because house prices and housing is one of the principal drivers of poverty and inequality in this county. And I've heard many references about the funding formula from the controlling group. And one of the principal reasons in the funding formula for Monmouthshire is around our hidden pockets of poverty and deprivation. We haven't got the same concentration levels, which affects us badly in the funding formula, and I've proposed a way out of that, which many members are well aware of. But housing is one of those key areas, and hence why I propose the investment committee to drive that area. And I'm really disappointed the administration still to date, 4 years down the line, haven't used that mechanism of borrowing powers to drive that agenda. And it's true to say that the investments made without Welsh Government money, and this is not a political point, it's just a statement of fact, because of the pandemic, would have made losses. So it would have made losses without Welsh Labour Government money, which is ultimately the taxpayer, admittedly. But what I would say to those members sceptical of investments per se, and I will give the administration its due here, is in the medium to long term, a council like Monmouthshire needs to drive investments forward. It needs to supplement its revenue generating capacity. It has to be prudent, has to be local where possible. I totally agree with all those points, and it should face fierce scrutiny. And I know Simon and many other independent members will, and the Labour group, what exists in the next council, will provide that if we're not in charge. I had to put that in. But on a serious note, the investment generates revenue in the medium to long term. It's the game in town where we can have the future in our hands. And we can be, well, we always will be right on Welsh Labour Government money or whoever who's in power in Cardiff Bay, and we always rely on a council tax base. Having the means by generating our own revenue in a prudent manner allows us to shape, not be completely impacted by the market, allows us to help shape the market where we deem there is need. And I strongly urge the next council to really not abandon this agenda. Mean that seriously. If you really want to affect and tackle poverty and inequality particularly, which is an issue close to my heart, then please do not abandon that agenda. On borrowing, if I may ask the Cabinet member and maybe the Chief Officer, I frequently pepper the Chief Officer about issues around inflation and borrowing. When I last asked the Chief Officer around inflation, he told me that the Council was advised by Treasury Management advisors that inflationary pressures would be temporary. It is clear it's not going to be temporary. It's going to be at least medium term, I would say. If you just look at oil prices, I think today at the market was $110 a barrel. When we talked about it, I think it was around 60. Those inflation pressures are not going to go away. If anything, they're going to be increased. And I do know in the report that it notes that, and it notes that Bank of England interest rates are going to increase over this year steadily, probably up to 1%. But who really knows? But probably up to 1%. And I note and I welcome that we solidified short-term borrowing and long-term borrowing of £20 million, if I've read the report correctly. So my question is, can we accelerate that agenda? Because it is clear inflation is not going to be short-term. It is clear interest rates are going to have to go up, although I admit it'll have to be steady, because you can't shatter the economy through huge increases in borrowing power. So can we start now, as a matter of urgency, shifting short-term borrowing to long-term borrowing?
Councillor Simon Howarth, please.
Chairman. Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I just got to say I do really support Dimitri on his comments about the lack of homes and how we're going to take that forward. And we did come to council some time ago with this matter, reference to the investment that we can put in there. Yeah, we've been bailed out with COVID. It's sad to say, COVID has bailed us out. The investments that we have not performed, rightly or wrongly. I mean, that is what investments are about. Sometimes they go well and sometimes they don't. I don't accept these are long-term investments because you have to have some benchmark for losses and for gains. And if they don't gain all the time, we have to have a review of where we're going to go with them. But I completely agree with the leader of the Labour group that we have to put some investment into some kind of housing process and build homes. There's no doubt about that. And I'll just give the example then. If we put £20 million into a couple of exception sites within Monmouthshire and deliver affordable homes in them sites, we would be king with that, and what an investment we would have made. And it can be done. We have the land, and we have the capability of doing that. We have partners to do that with. So it's something I do hope that as an authority we can look at in the next administration quite strongly. Don't play around the edges with it. Let's get on with it and let's look at it strongly. That's all I have to say on the matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jeremy Becker, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to chime in because we're talking about housing again. I'd actually disagree that the Investment Committee is the place to take that forward. As I've said, there are opportunities available to us to improve the quality of the housing, the rates of finance we use to build housing, but thinking of it as an investment to draw revenue for the council is the wrong way to think about it. That is not what we should be thinking about. Our investment when we build houses is for our communities and the well-being of our future generations. It's not so that we can get more money in to continue being a dormitory county. So I think in that sense, I'm glad that the Investment Committee isn't necessarily looking at the housing arm. I think there is a different function that we should be looking at to make use of green finance, which is low interest in a place where we're getting high interest rates and everything else at the moment, and that we can go forward with a better plan to produce better quality housing, which serves our community. The Investment Committee should be looking at investments to drive inward funds for the county. I think whereas I have some ideological issues with choosing to be landlords of bricks and mortar places in an age where I always thought that was on the reduction. But I will actually go on record and say the solar farms, things like that. I think that we should be doing more of that level of investment. The sort of thing that benefits us in multiple ways, not just money. Certainly, I think that looking at housing as a source of income is wrong. The profit that we make on housing is actually the improvement in our residents' lives and the quality of the environment in our county. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Bob Greenland, please.
Thank you again, Chair. I think the one thing that we can all agree, whatever side of the council we are on, is that we do need quite a number of additional houses in the county which are affordable and social housing. It is quite clear when you've got a housing list of 2,500 plus, I think, households looking for homes in the area, we have to provide it. But we cannot provide that unless it is via the LDP, and that is an issue which is going to be top of the list for the new council coming forward in the next administration. We need those houses desperately, and if we can put money into providing those, then yes, that's what we will certainly be doing. But we first of all have to have those houses in the LDP, and our discussions with Welsh Government are ongoing, because I'm not sure that they quite agree that we do need these houses, which is an amazing statement from a Labour Welsh Government.
Thank you very much. No other members have expressed a wish to speak, so I shall return to Councillor Phil Murphy and then go to the vote. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And with regards to the interest rates, and incidentally this morning it was £119 a barrel. It's frightening, Dimitri. I absolutely agree with you. Simply put, we've locked into long-term borrowing in the year and aligned to our borrowing needs and our exposure. Projections remain, but are subject to change, of course, and from the Bank of England, the inflationary pressures are anticipated to last for 12 to 18 months. So clearly the Ukraine crisis will impact further, but this is an evolving situation. We have to keep a balance of short-term, long-term as part of the indicators. So it's all about keeping the balance to ensure that we're not overly exposed to interest rate risk. We will, of course, look at opportunities to fix at low rates whenever we can, but conscious that we can't time the market. I don't know whether Peter or Jonathan would like to add to that, but I think that was the main point raised. Again, I will refer to what I said in the previous item with regards to housing. It would be great if we could build some more houses, but at the moment they won't let us. But I'll leave it for Peter or John to come in if they want to add any more to the matter of the investment and Treasury Management.
Officers.
Thank you, Chair. Peter Davis, Deputy Chief Executive, Chief Officer for Resources. I've got nothing further to add, just in terms of Councillor Murphy's response specific to the points around inflationary pressures, borrowing investments, etc. I think the only point I would make with regards to housing, I think the comments from within the Chamber, I think they acknowledge the constraints that are upon us at the moment in terms of building out housing. I think it's always been communicated back to members that until such time that we've got a ready pipeline and ability to actually build out housing, then clearly we're going to maintain a position and hold a position in that respect. Once that pipeline is better understood, then clearly we will look at the most appropriate vehicle to enable that to happen. But that is not with us as things stand.
Okay, thank you. So I did say that it would be the final item. I did notice that Councillor Roger Harris raised his hand just as I'd said that we'd closed off the raise hands function. Councillor Harris, is there anything else you wanted to add there, or was there a question specifically you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, thanks, Chair. It's going back to what Councillor Bob Greenland was saying about the replacement LDP. It really, the information that we got back on the planning committee, and we all got fed, was it was the senior planning officer that, if you like, was getting in the way of us building any further houses. And in fact, he said we shouldn't have any houses whatsoever. Now, nobody in their right minds, no matter where they are, should even be thinking down that way. So I hope that credit where credit is due, and it's the officers as opposed to direct interference with by the Welsh Government that has given us this impasse. And I hope that we all in the next authority fight like mad any constraints that will stop us building much needed houses for those deprived people on the waiting list, and I think it's more like 4,000 than 2,500. But I just wanted to get that one in there. I believe it was officer-led rather than political-led. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Harris, for that. Okay, so the recommendations have been detailed, sent out in the pack. They're on page 15, 2.1 to 2.5. We'll now go to the vote for those recommendations. Okay, so I'm happy to confirm that's been carried. Thank you very much. Members, I will try and call a camper break every couple of hours throughout the meeting today, but we'll try and I'll try and call that at a spot that makes sense if we can. But we'll try and get through the next report if we can. So it's 5.3, agenda item 5.3, population needs assessment. Councillor Penny-Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for giving an opportunity for this report to be brought to Council. Local authorities are required under the Social Services and Wellbeing Wales Act 2014 to work in partnership with health boards to produce a regional population needs assessment report per local government electoral cycle. The Act also stipulates that the Regional Partnership Board is required to produce a population needs assessment, PNA, but local authorities and health board are required formally to approve this report and make it available on their websites. A copy of the population assessment report must be completed by April 2022 and be sent to Welsh ministers at the time of publication. The PNA has been developed in collaboration with the newly formed Regional Public Service Board and the development of their wellbeing assessment to avoid duplication and identified shared priorities, which will support greater working between the two boards, the Regional Partnership Board and the Public Service Board, going forward. The PNA highlights significant areas of need across Monmouthshire and the extended region and includes a strong citizen voice and is also the basis for greater partnership working going forward, which, given the huge challenges that we're all facing, is the key to ensuring we deliver the outcomes to some of our most vulnerable citizens. The outcomes from the PNA will be central to setting the strategic priorities and work plans of the RPB and its subgroups, and these are already being taken forward at local levels. Chair, I'd like to say that Phil Diamond, who's the Service Manager for the Regional Partnership Board, Matt Gatehouse, who's Head of Policy, Performance and Scrutiny, and Jane Rogers, Chief Officer of Social Care and Health, are all online should any questions be asked. Thank you.
Thank you very much, members. There is a raise hands function in the chat bar. Councillor Dimitri Petruni, please.
Thank you, Chair. One is I'm speaking 3 times apparently, I've overdone it. One is a technical question, which is, I can see some of the graphs predict, sometimes 25 years out, suggested, for example, predict the number of people unable to do one task when they're over 65. And that data is ostensibly from the ONS figures of 2001. And that's just one indicator I've picked up on, but there's several. Is it wise to base these models, or some of these models, on 2001 data? I asked that as a floating question. In my opinion, no. And would it, and I heard, and I'm happy to be corrected by the Cabinet member, that it's done every electoral cycle. I think that's not wise. I think you should base it on the latest data that comes in, and certainly on the 2021 census, to base some of these models and predictors, given that's all that happened in the world, and I just hope to get an answer to that. Secondly, I noticed Monmouthshire in particular, in relation to up-to-date data, has a spike from being bottom in 2017 to being second of the percentage of people who feel lonely. And that's a worrying trend, and I know Councillor Francis Taylor and many others have spoken about this, including myself, and that's for the next administration. That trend, if you see the spike, is worrying, very worrying, and we need to be on top of that, because it's not just that indicator, the social consequences that unfurl from that, including mental health, and then subsequent impact on council services, needs thinking through by the next administration and council. And I just wanted to point that bit out.
Thank you. Councillor Simon Howarth, please.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to go to 3.4 to the bullet points and just ask the question there, and that revolves around probably Dimitri's earlier point there about being the age of where we are with this. Is the last bullet point there, violence against women, domestic abuse and sexual violence? All the other bullet points are actually using the gender for everyone, but the last bullet point there, I just want to ask the question why we haven't included the male in that. And don't forget, this is a nationwide survey as well to be carried out census. So could I just ask the question, is violence against women - men also? I just want to know why that isn't in there, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. No other members have expressed a wish to speak, so I'll go back to the Cabinet Member, Councillor Penny-Jones.
Thank you, Chair. My computer has just gone down, so I don't know what 3.4 was exactly. Just what a time. However, I do agree with your point, Councillor Howard. I'll just come back to you that, the male point of view is incredibly important, and I would like to go into that further as well. Councillor Petruni, since, as I said, the Social Services and Wellbeing Wales Act in 2014, this is a legal requirement to produce this every electoral cycle, so we have to do it. As for the loneliness and social isolation, that is something that this council really keeps an eye on, and we've had innovative and creative ways of dealing with it. Why do you think it may have gone up so much recently? Well, I suspect because we're we're an aged population and many people live alone, and we've had a pandemic. We have done everything we can to help people not to feel isolated through digital means or through volunteers, whatever, so that people are not left alone. But that is an issue which will be addressed at the highest level and will be a top priority, and it already is, in fact, at a local level. I don't know, Chair, if anyone such as he had some more technical questions, whether Phil Diamond would like to come in at this stage, or even Matt. Okay,
Phil, Matt.
Thank you.
Yes, it's the reliability of data has caused frustration both to myself and Matt, and sometimes we can only present information that is available. I agree, the data from 2001 is particularly out of date, but sometimes that's the only data we have. But we are balanced in terms of the PNA and the wellbeing assessment, and we will use up-to-date information where available. So for instance, around mental health, and this is picking up on the loneliness agenda, we have used data from the National Mental Health Survey that was completed during the pandemic and is as recent as 3 to 6 months ago. We house some of this information on the RPB website. The website is linked to Data Cymru Wales's website, so that when data is available, it will be updated on our website. It's quite a technical point, but each week Data Cymru do a trawl of data to check on the latest available, and that information is then sort of updated on our website. So for instance, children looked after, the data is updated regularly there. The census data, I share the frustrations. That is something that we would really keen to include within the PNA, and I know Matt feels the same, as well as PSB colleagues. As soon as that is available, we will be updating it through the PNA. So the PNA will be refreshed and updated continuously through the website, and we will not just rely on data that is out of date, but we will use up-to-date information where we can. The data is always balanced with the qualitative information and the citizen's voice as well, which is particularly important. And of course, the data and the need is important, but what is even more important is how we turn those words into action. And following the publication of the PNA, we will be required as an RPB in a region to produce an action plan and an area plan. And that is an opportunity to update our thinking and our need whilst we go through that process. And we would be willing to bring back a copy of that area plan, another statutory document that has to be signed off by the RPB to you in the future as well. So the opportunity is not lost for us to use the up-to-date information, and we are looking forward to seeing some of that census data. The loneliness point, totally agree. It is particularly profound as as you would expect during the pandemic, and the need for people to isolate and shield, and that has to be a priority, I think, going forward. There is a large amount of work that has been progressed, but that will, I believe, be a particular focus. The voucher SV point, for me, there's a slight quirk within the legislation here, because we actually have a separate voucher SV legislation, and that work is more aligned to the Public Service Board. It has found its way within the Population Needs Assessment Guidance, but in considering that this legislation was first formulated in 2014, what we try to do is avoid duplication. So there is a voucher SV lead, and I can assure you that men are included within that legislation. I hope the points have been helpful. I'm more than happy to pick up any other points outside the meeting, and I would just like to maybe at this opportunity, if I could, to thank the Scrutiny Committee in Monmouthshire, who viewed this P&A and provided some very helpful comments, which we have now used to update the P&A. Thank you.
Chair, sorry, can I just make this really quick point? It's important on the two responses. The loneliness, and I appreciate the response, by the way, Mr. Diamond and the Cabinet Member, but you both referred to the pandemic. If you actually look at the data, it's 2017 to 2019, pre-pandemic. So the spike is before the pandemic.
Phil, do you want to come back and just answer that on a single point?
Apologies, I thought it was in relation to the pandemic. There has been obviously an even greater spike there. Yeah, that's something we will take away and review. The loneliness data is coming in from a number of different points as well, and we will do our best to understand that. And as I go back, the need that we've highlighted will help drive the action plan. So when we go forward, looking at the remedial actions, how to mitigate some of this, we will have that further opportunity to understand where some of these spikes have come from, and we can also look at localized support. Obviously, we cover 5 local authorities. One size does certainly not fit all, but more than happy to provide a more detailed response outside of this meeting, again, if helpful.
Phil, thank you very much. I'm aware also that Councillor Giles Howard also raised his hand. He popped up in the function bar just as I went over to Penny, but he's since indicated, as he's in the chamber, that he no longer wishes to speak. So with that, I'm happy to move to the vote. Unless you want to come back, Penny, with anything?
No, Chair, that's fine. Thank you very much. And just to say that everything is being carried out as a result of this P&A, and will go forward, and it will be updated and refreshed frequently. So thank you very much. But I'd also like to thank all the officers concerned in this report for all the hard work.
Very good. Thank you very much for that. So the recommendations are on page 73 of the agenda pack I sent out, 2.1, 2.2. There's now a vote function in the chat bar, so members, please vote. Okay, so members, that's unanimously carried. It has just reached 4 o'clock, so we've been in session for 2 hours. So I'd like us to call a break for 10 minutes to meet back here at 16:10. Thank you. Okay, thank you, members. Thank you, members in the chamber. Thank you for members at home as well for bearing with us. We're moving on through the agenda. The next item is 5.4, and that's a statement to be read by Paul Pavia for the 21st Century Schools Band B funding, and it's, like I said, a statement from Cabinet Member for Children and Young People, Paul Pavia. Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Today, I thought it was opportune to provide an update on the progress that we've made in the delivery of Monmouthshire's Sustainable Schools programme, formerly known as the 21st Century Schools Band B development. Members will be aware that the Band B programme is to establish the 3 to 19 school on the King Henry VIII school site in Abergavenny. The new school will be made up of pupils from Derryview Primary School and King Henry VIII Secondary School. On completion of the new school, Derryview School building will be repurposed to facilitate the expansion of Ysgol Gymraeg Ifenny, a key aspect of our Welsh in Education Strategic Plan, and the Welsh Strategic Plan, which will be discussed later today. In Band A, our projects in Caldecott and Monmouth provided reimagined learning environments for our secondary age pupils, and this project is more ambitious as it involves creating Monmouthshire's first all-through school. We have chosen to take this approach to tackle some of the significant challenges that exist locally. We know the catchment area of Derryview is the most deprived in Monmouthshire, and we believe that this approach, through developing the all-through school, will help tackle the challenges that this presents and ensure that education has the impact that we know it can have in terms of transforming people's lives. An all-through school combines at least primary and secondary stages of education, and at times also nursery and senior phase provision within a single institution, and provides continuous education for its pupils throughout phases. The school often occupies a single site and has one governing body. And emerging evidence suggests that all-through schools have beneficial effects on various aspects of schools' day-to-day running, the professional development of staff, and on the educational experience and outcomes of their pupils. To establish any new school, there is a requirement to undertake a statutory process to extend the age range of either King Henry or Derryview, or close both schools to establish a new 3 to 19 school. To be fair and equitable to both schools, Cabinet undertook a statutory process to close King Henry VIII Comprehensive School and Derryview Primary School and open a new 3 to 19 school. The statutory consultation process commenced in June last year and was completed in January 22, with Cabinet taking the decision to close both Derryview and King Henry and establish a new 3 to 19 school from September 2023. Further to that decision, Cabinet agreed that a temporary governing body for the new school will be set up as soon as possible. The Local Authority Governance Committee met this morning and went through the applications submitted and selected 5 individuals who will now form this temporary body. It is anticipated that the governing body's first meeting will take place in the next week or so, and an early and critical part of their work will be to appoint a new head teacher. It is anticipated that a new teacher will be in post from the 1st of January 2023, and the new head teacher, in conjunction with the temporary governing body, will develop the staffing structure, develop the vision and governance for the new school. To secure funding to build the new school, a series of business cases have been submitted to Welsh Government, as the Welsh Government contributes 65% of the total cost, and Monmouthshire County Council provides the remaining 35% of the contribution. Ministerial approval of the outline business case was received in December 2021, and the full business case will be submitted to Welsh Government this week for determination in April 22. Following this, a report will be brought to the County Council to agree the Council's 35% contribution. And through the business case process, we have also determined that the school should be built to net zero carbon standard. This brings with it a sizable impact on the construction costs, but we have chosen to do this in partnership with the Welsh Government, recognising the sustainability benefit and our own commitment to the climate change emergency. The new school will have 20 Flying Start spaces, 30 full-time equivalent nursery places, 420 primary places, and 1,200 secondary school places, and 200 sixth form places. Since Cabinet originally agreed the scope of the project in 2017, it has evolved further and now includes a centre for children with complex neurodevelopmental needs, a Wellbeing Center, and additional Flying Start provision and provision of wraparound childcare. This suite of services and provision will enable the new school to have a demonstrable impact on the community, recognising the significant benefits of early intervention, parenting support and services right at the heart of the community there in Abergavenny. Learners with complex neurodevelopmental needs are the most significant area of demand and growth within Monmouthshire. The inclusion of the specialist centre in the new school ensures that the council has the capacity to meet the needs of learners and provide a seamless education offer right across the age range. And the centre will also enable pupils to be educated within their existing community. The Wellbeing Centre will provide behaviour support provision delivered by the Pupil Referral Unit as outreach provision, which will be part of a graduated response and complement schools-based interventions, therefore enhancing the capacity of schools to support all pupils and help maintain these young people within mainstream learning environments. Additional Flying Start provision is included within the project to expand the existing provision and maintain the already established and successful relationships between Derryview and Flying Start. From our recent childcare sufficiency assessment, a statutory process which we must undertake every 5 years, we identified that there is a shortage of childcare places within Abergavenny, and the additional wraparound childcare will help to address this shortfall. It will support families in the area to access work and employment opportunities and meet the expectation of a childcare offer from the age of 2 years old and upwards. The King Henry VIII School site presents several challenges for construction. For example, restricted views across the site, designated public amenity space and steep contours. And when I say steep contours, I think there's a range of 20 metres between the highest and lowest points of the school site. So in order to minimise disruption and to help reduce costs, the pupils attending the existing King Henry VIII School will remain in their existing buildings. Whilst avoiding the use of temporary accommodation is beneficial to the budget and the stability of pupils' learning experiences, it has reduced the availability of land to build upon. As we progress to the final stages of the business case process, it is important that I update members as to some of the risks that we have to address. The changes in scope of the project has meant that the floor area has increased, and as a result, the overall cost to the build has increased. The impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and other inflationary cost drivers is also not fully known. However, both are influencing project costs. Raw material costs are high, and our contractors report delays in supply chain and labour availability. The project team are continually reviewing the costs as the scheme progresses through market testing of works packages. As part of the Council's outline business case submission to Welsh Government, an economic appraisal was undertaken on the various options considered to deliver the objectives of the proposal, and a preferred option was identified. Each option was scored against the investment objectives, critical success factors and benefit delivery. The exercise has been repeated, and because of the increase in costs relating to market price inflation and on labour and materials, an appropriate uplift has been applied to all options. The 3 to 19 school, as outlined above, remains the preferred option to take forward despite the increased costs. Our project manager partners, ACOM, have been appointed to provide project and cost management services for the whole of the project, and Morgan Sindall Construction has been appointed as the main contractor for the project up until the end of REBA Stage 4. A planning application consultation took place between November 21 and January 2022, and since that time, planning permission has been submitted. The project timeline anticipates a decision on the planning application in June 2022, and following that, enabling works will commence on site in June 22 and continue throughout the school summer holidays. The school build is scheduled to commence in September 22 and complete in time for the pupils to move in from September 2024. For the first year of the school's existence, the school will operate from 2 separate sites. The project, including demolition of the existing school, will be completed by December 2024. Building a school at any time is a significant endeavour. The world has experienced significant changes in the period since the Strategic Outline Plan was approved in 2017, not least the global pandemic and now the conflict in Eastern Europe. These have and will continue to have an impact on the development of this programme of work. However, we believe that this project will deliver benefits beyond the classroom for the future generation of Abergavenny, and this administration maintains its commitment to the project. Mr. Chairman, I commend this statement to Council. I am happy to field questions, but I'm obviously cognizant of the fact that the planning application has been made. Therefore, any questions relating to planning or design, neither officers or I can answer because it could prejudice the quasi-judicial function of our Council's Planning Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pavier. Councillor Simon Howarth, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thanks for that, Paul. That's great to hear that we're going to take the project forward, and it's great to hear for the Abergavenny area and surrounding areas that we're going to have a new school. That's brilliant news. May I just ask a question, Paul, about the leisure facilities there and the combination of the leisure facilities with the school? Is that part of the process of the application also? And the costs and everything's built in with the leisure and school, or is that a total separate individual case that we're going to have to put forward? Reference to all our leisure facilities are generally built around the school facility also for the usage. Just a quick answer on that one, just because you haven't mentioned the leisure side of this, which is very important as well for everyone, i.e. It's a gain for Abergavenny having good leisure facilities there as well, which they're part of the school but part of the local community also. Cheers, Paul.
I'll ask the Cabinet Member to answer the questions at the end like we have with the other reports, if that's okay. So we'll move to Councillor Martin Grocott, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's a comment rather than a question, if I may, Chair. As the local elected member for Derryview Primary School, and indeed for King Henry VIII Comprehensive School, I warmly welcome this development. And particularly, I think, the acknowledgement of the social and economic difficulties faced by the community that I seek to serve. I think that it is an exciting plan and one that I hope will enable those youngsters who currently are in Derryview School to go on and indeed in the future to thrive and to fulfil their potential. I was delighted this morning to be appointed to the temporary governing body that Councillor Pavier referred to. I will be the only county councillor on that august body, and I would just like to make it very clear that it will take a lot of my time and that I will be a very, very positive member of that temporary governing body. And I see that as a real opportunity to create a school of which Abergavenny and indeed its pupils in particular can take great pride. I would like to pay great tribute to the head teacher at King Henry VIII Comprehensive School, who has announced that she'll be stepping down at the end of this school year. It would have been lovely for Elspeth Lewis to see this project through to completion. I well understand why she is not able to do that, but she has been a tremendous asset to King Henry VIII School and has worked her socks off to develop the collaboration between that school and Derryview and indeed other primary schools within the cluster as well. And I think that she leaves King Henry in a far better place than it was when she arrived. So I look forward with tremendous optimism. I commit myself to being a very, very active member of that temporary governing body. I do bring experience from a previous existence of opening several new schools, so I'm not a total rookie at the process. And let me assure officers that I will be working hand in glove with you to really get this project off to the exciting start that our people deserve in Abergavenny. Thank you for allowing me to say that, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dimitri Petruni, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's indeed an exciting project, and we obviously welcome the Council's support to the Welsh Labour Government's 21st Century School programme. I'm just wondering, with the increased costs, what, if you alluded to there, I missed it, sorry, Councillor Pavia, discussions you've had with the Welsh Government around their additional support financially to the project. And you outlined quite rightly the positive effects on the area, the town, and on its pupils. And for the record, I'm still deeply disappointed that Chepstow Comprehensive School was not included in the Band B, and coterminous like Monmouth and Caldecott were on Band A.
Thank you very much. No other members have expressed a wish to speak, so I'll return now to Councillor Paul Pavia.
Thank you, Chair. Can I obviously thank members for their questions. Councillor Howarth, in terms of leisure facilities, obviously part of the application there will be a real significant upgrades to leisure opportunities that will be on the school site. There'll be 4G pitches and additional learning spaces, a hockey mugger and other additional resources there. But it's obviously very separate to the to any additional investment in relation to Abergavenny Leisure Centre, but they're obviously on the site, and there will be obviously community benefits to those assets when they're built. In terms of Councillor Grocott's comments, obviously really welcome those comments. As Councillor Grocott alluded to, he put in an application to be part of the temporary governing body, and I'm really pleased he has, because he's very able and experienced, not just a councillor, but obviously in his pre-professional days as an educationalist. So obviously welcome Martin's experience, and I know he will work extremely hard as that member of the temporary body. So can I just thank him for those words? Obviously, absolutely agree with him in terms of Elspeth's contribution to education, not just in King Henry, but for us as a council body right across Monmouthshire. We really benefited from her as a experienced and senior educationalist. She's done fantastic work in the north of the county, and I know other colleagues, senior heads, as part of the Heads Forum, have really benefited from her advice and insight. So she will be missed. As Councillor Grocott said, I understand why she wants to step away now, but she will be missed. But I just obviously thank her for all the work that she's done. In terms of Councillor Petruni's comments, again, obviously, thank you for the positive comments. Yes, there's obviously been additional negotiations with Welsh Government, particularly on the net zero, which we really welcome. In terms of inflationary costs, I think that's something that we'll obviously have to continue to discuss with Welsh Government and negotiate. It's not just an impact for us as a local authorities. All local authorities looking to develop new educational facilities, but obviously, particularly for the net zero costs, we really welcome their additional increase to support that aspiration. So. But obviously, it's something that will continue to fluctuate over the next few weeks and months. And as I said in the statement, there will be for the new council then to consider the 35% contribution for us to take forward. So that would obviously be early in the new administration, but that would be for administration to take that forward.
Thank you very much, Councillor Pavia, for bringing that statement to the Chamber. There is no vote for that. Obviously, it's a statement, so that allows us to move on to agenda item 5.5, which is SACRA, Terms of Reference and Agreed Syllabus Conference. And again, back to you, Councillor Paul Pavia.
Thank you, Chair. As the Chair of the Standing Advisory Council on Religious Education, I'm bringing this paper to members this afternoon to get Council's ratification on the recommendations made by SACRA to form an agreed syllabus conference and to update the current SACRA terms of reference to align with the new Curriculum for Wales legislation to enable the conference to secure the broadest representation it can. Following the implementation of the Curriculum and Assessment Wales Act 2021, each local authority must prepare and adopt a syllabus of religion, values and ethics for use in all maintained schools and have due regard to guidance given by Welsh ministers on this matter. Religion, values and ethics is a statutory requirement of the Curriculum for Wales and is mandatory for all learners from age 3 to 16. The RVE forms part of the humanities area, and this area encompasses geography, history, religion, values and ethics and business studies. Obviously, these disciplines share many common themes, concepts and transferable skills, whilst having their own discrete body of knowledge and skills. The local authority has a legal duty to establish and convene an agreed syllabus conference and to prepare a syllabus for the religion, values and ethics part of the curriculum for adoption by the local authority. So in preparing the RVE syllabus, the conference must have due regard to the Curriculum for Wales guidance and in particular the RVE guidance. And in addition, the syllabus must reflect the following points, which is that the religious traditions in Wales are in the main Christian, whilst obviously taking into account the teaching and practices of other principal religions represented in Wales. A range of non-religious philosophical convictions are held in Wales, and that local authority may make different provision in respect of different descriptions of schools maintained by the local authority and different descriptions of learners. So the conference is very much a separate legal entity from SACRA. However, the group makeup mirrors the SACRA structure in having 3 distinct representative groups. So in the case of the syllabus conference, we'll have Group A, which is the representation from Christian denominations and other religions, and denominations of such religions, as well as non-religious philosophical convictions. Then Group B is the teaching representation, and then Group C is the persons to represent the authority. And there's obviously an ability for us to co-opt, but there's no legal provision for the conference to do that. These changes allow us to comply with the legal changes that are agreed. The agreed syllabus for the RVE must reflect both religious beliefs and non-religious, which are philosophical convictions within the meaning of Article 2, Protocol 1 of the European Convention on Human Rights. And that the provision of the appointment of persons who represent holders of non-religious philosophical convictions is carried out in the same way as the appointment of persons who represent holders of religious beliefs. So the formulation and terms of reference of the new Standing Advisory Council for Religious Educations, which are the new SACs, which will replace SACRAs under the new legislation, is a very, very separate process, and that will take place early in the new administrative term. So members will see in the report the timeline. There is a huge amount of work to do in a very, very tight time scale, and obviously with Council's agreement this afternoon that work will start next week, and we'll continue to work through the pre-election and election periods in the background to ensure that deadlines are met, because we need to ensure the schools are properly prepared for delivering the new curriculum in September 2022. So, Mr. Chairman, I'll allow you to go through the recommendations. That's okay.
Thank you very much, Councillor Paul Pavia. So, there is a raised hand function in the chat bar. If any members wish to ask any questions. If not, the recommendations are on page 147 of the agenda pack. I've had no raised hands, so I'm happy to take that to the vote. as carried. Thank you very much, everybody. Moving on through the agenda to 5.6, repurposing scrutiny arrangements. Councillor Bob Greenland, I believe.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I first joined this council in 2004, and after about 6 months of sitting on a so-called scrutiny committee, I did sit back and wondered what on earth it was all about. What was I adding? What value was I adding at all to the work of the council? In those days, scrutiny was a tick box exercise, to be perfectly honest. And since that time, we've seen great improvements in the scrutiny function. And I think it was particularly, there were major changes in, I think, 2009. And we have progressed. There is absolutely no doubt about it in that period of time. And this is an absolutely essential part of a council's performance monitoring. It is vital that members that are not in the executive scrutinise and hold to account the executive decisions. And actually, these days, the pre-decision scrutiny is becoming even more important. And we have got a much improved scrutiny function. I only wish that we had, within the health service, a similar scrutiny function that we've even got now in Monmouthshire, because there seems to be no external scrutiny of management decisions. And I think that's a huge failing in the health service, but that's another matter. But is it as good as it could and should be? Well, I don't think it is. And I think that a lot of other members would agree with me that we can make improvements. In fact, I think it was the Democratic Services Committee that discussed this. And officers went away to look at ways which they believed the scrutiny function could be improved. And they came up with proposals, and that's what we have in front of us today. I believe that those proposals have the backing of the 4 existing scrutiny chairs. And what we're now trying to do is to make a decision that can be implemented in time for the new council. All of us as existing members have got the have known what it's like to operate under this type of scrutiny, and it's much more logical that we are better placed to make the decisions about any changes than new members that might come in after the election. Not only that, but when new members come in, there will be months of training and other priorities that, if there are to be any changes in the scrutiny process, they will come very low down on the agenda. So I think it's right now that we as members look at this issue and decide whether or not the proposals that officers have brought before us today are in fact an improvement on what we've got now. Personally, I believe they definitely are. I'm not sure that I could think of a better option going forward, but it is for all of the members here today to make that decision ourselves about whether we stick with what we've got or we make a change for the next council, the next administration after May. I'm sure that we won't have it right or perfect. Indeed, if there was a perfect solution, all the councils in England and Wales would have found it by now. But is this the best solution for Monmouthshire? That's what we need to find out. Now, I'm not going to go through the report. It is quite clear there. But what effectively the main thing that we're being asked is this in 2.1, that we approve the creation of a new performance and overview scrutiny committee, the merger of the children and young people's and adult select committees, and the merger of the economy and development and strong communities committee to create 2 policy scrutiny committees, and then the retention of the Public Services Scrutiny Committee. I hope I've got that right. I'm sure if I haven't, officers will put me right. And talking about officers, I see Hazel Eilert, the author of the report, is here with us together with Matt Gatehouse. And if I might suggest, Chair, perhaps you'd like to invite one or other of those, or both of them, to make any additional comments before you open it for debate to members. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'd very much like to. Matt Gatehouse.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and excuse me, thank you, Councillor Greenland. Matt Gatehouse, Head of Policy, Performance and Scrutiny. I think Councillor Greenland has put the position across very clearly. As he's articulated, the origins of this work go back to discussions held in Democratic Services Committee around promoting public participation in engagement. Work has also been undertaken with the current chairs of Select Committee, and some of it actually goes back to some of the previous chairs of Select Committee. The proposals before you today, as Councillor Green has alluded to, there is no one perfect solution. However, we do believe that this is the best fit for Monmouthshire, ensuring that we align with the interests of members, create a committee structure that enables us to engage effectively with the public and involve them in the shaping and contributing to some of the very difficult decisions that the next council will have to take within this chamber. So, yeah, Chair, Councillor Greenland, thanks very much for the opportunity to talk about that.
Thank you very much. I'll go to members' questions now, as indicated in the raised hand function. So, Councillor Joanne Watkins, please.
Thank you very much. I was the chair of Democratic Services when we were actually discussing these issues pre-pandemic, and I'm really pleased that we're actually managing to get onto them within this council term. Obviously, nobody was expecting a pandemic to intervene and slow the process down. I have always been passionate about increasing public participation in our democracy, and by revamping these scrutiny committees, we can actually then bring the public in a more intimate fashion so that they can get really into the heart of some of the questions that we all have to face. We really do need to include the public as much as humanly possible so that they have, when we make these decisions, which are very important decisions, we affect the lives of many people across Monmouthshire, and we really need to take the public with us in that scrutiny. Whilst I was the chair, I met with a number of members of the public, and they did say our existing structures weren't working for that. And so we really do need to make a change. I'm personally in favour of option one, because that will actually be that we can then play to councillors' strengths for the people who like the more public participation and the people who also like to be more focused on analysing the numbers. And I think that will probably help councillors to play to their own strengths, and then that will make a more better functioning aspect of our democracy here in county. And I really thank Hazel and Matt for all the work that I know that they put in back pre-pandemic and has been going on since then. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Maureen Powell, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I really welcome this proposal, because I have been on the Children and Young People Select Committee since I was elected in 2008, and I've been on adults for quite a while now because they were running short of people. And this week was absolutely typical. We had adults yesterday, children and young people today, and it was virtually the same discussion in both meetings. And I know this doesn't always happen, but very often things are repeated. And also, we sometimes have trouble getting enough people on select committees because of their other commitments. And if you put two of them together, you're more likely to get a full complement. You'll be discussing the subjects once and possibly more thoroughly. And so I really recommend this and I support it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Jane Pratt, please. I'll come back to you now. Councillor Sheila Woodhouse, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to say I fully support this as a current chair of Strong Communities. We've discussed this. The officers have worked extremely hard putting it all together, and we've discussed this. We've had a members' seminar, joint chairs, other scrutiny chairs, and yes, I totally agree with it. I would like to see the name changed because select is a little bit confusing. Sometimes I've often had to explain to people it's actually scrutiny, so I'm sure that will be taken on board, but I can see the benefits of this in as much as some of the joint select committee meetings have brought a lot more debate and a lot more participation from members. So yes, please, I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Jane Pratt, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I thank the Cabinet Member, Councillor Greenland, for bringing these proposals, and to the officers, Matt and Hazel, for the excellent job they've done here. I fully support these proposals. I think scrutiny needed a refresh. It had become stale, and the new council needs to hit the ground running. And I think these plans will provide a real workable strategy which will give us more effective scrutiny. So well done to all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Simon Howarth, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members, for your comments. I will support option one. As we all know, the Constitution actually gives us the option to do anything we want with selects. Scrutiny committees, as we rightly say. I don't see anything reference to the numbers, on what numbers we're going to have, but I've been a chair for quite some time now, and as an opposition chair, which I find greatly one of the probably the better things of not because it's select, but I do find the selects probably one of the better functions of the council, actually scrutinising performance and main policy, etc. And I always note, and this is the major issue that we do have with select committees, is with the scrutiny side of it. I always note members who speak, and we have gone stale. I can give you probably the last 4 years of members who actually speak within my select, and it seems to be that we have the same individuals who are asking the questions, which is poor. And I think we need to review this. It's quite right. I think it says there in 2 years' time, once we get into the next session, we'll have a look at and review this. Because my personal view on this is no use being there if you're not going to ask the questions, if you're just going to sit there and do nothing. I welcome the issue of the Performance Scrutiny Committee. That's something we asked for many years ago now, and we're going to end up with that. That is really good. That's all to do with the finance side of it, and asking and scrutinising the budget monitoring, etc. And I think that is a committee on its own, with individuals who want to do that, not people sitting in a room who don't want to do it or don't understand it. I think that's so important. Now we've realised in the council how important that is. So I will support option one. I'd just like some reference to the numbers game on what we're going to put on here as reference to numbers. We're going to have a few more members on board. I don't see the cabinet increasing to accommodate from 8, let's say. So it's going to be down to probably round about 38 members to facilitate the four scrutiny committees there. So I'd like to see what the numbers are going to be. Whether we have that after the election or not, I'm not too sure. But do we increase it? Do we decrease it? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Giles Howard, please.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I think the report's eminently sensible, and I agree with the comments that previous speakers have made. I particularly agree with Simon's comments about the committees seem to have been a little stale of late, and they don't seem to have had the drive behind them that we've seen in the past. There seems to be a lack of proactiveness and policy development more than anything else. I've got a couple of questions about paragraph 3.6, or points really. The first comment there, skill set and capacity, and reference to members' natural aptitudes for particular service areas. And I think by combining the 4 committees into 2 helps make them a little broader and possibly provides greater areas of interest to keep members involved. And certainly I've been more interested in certain aspects of the council than others, and I've never had any aptitude for social care and education in particular. Not that I don't recognise how vital and important they are, but it's just never had been a particular interest, so I think that's great. The section about accountability and scrutiny's capacity to effectively hold to account, how is that going to be approved by the new arrangements in a way that the current setup doesn't facilitate? And the last one then, engaging the public, and the paragraph reads, does the current scrutiny committee structure provide an effective mechanism and so on? Well, it clearly doesn't, but why do we think that the new structure will? I'd hate to do the old broken record that I've done many times past about timing of meetings, but that's certainly a factor. So in a way, just rearranging the committees under different headings and combining topics is necessarily going to solve that. And I'd like to hear a little bit more from the officers perhaps about how they think that will work. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Paul Jordan, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think so far as this authority is concerned, we do a pretty reasonable job of scrutiny compared to other authorities. However, I think we can do better. I fully support these proposals, but I think going hand in hand with these proposals, we must have, at the earliest stage of the next administration, substantial training for those new members so that they hit the ground running. And I think that needs to be a commitment to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Dimitri Petruni, please.
Thank you, Chair. Broadly, support the changes, although I won't be here. I would have liked to join the new Performance and Overview Scrutiny Committee. But two quick points. One is a technical question, just a clarification question. Retention of the Public Services Scrutiny Committee, and then option 1 on page 157 says the Partnership Committee. Are they the one and the same thing? Have you just changed the name? Right. Okay. So that was just one question. The second one is Policy and Scrutiny Committee, and I've just read the brief. Would you be better off, if we want to fulfil the public engagement bit, calling it Policy Development and Scrutiny Committee? Because if I wasn't politically active or interested or a geek, if I heard the word scrutiny, that would put me off. But if I hear the word development and I care about my area, you'd be more likely to contribute. That's just my personal view. And given that's the remit of those committees, to engage the public, to get their views, to have it as a mechanism to possibly create public policy, or at least drive a discussion on public policy in certain areas, I just would suggest that change.
Thank you very much. No other members have expressed a wish to speak. Councillor Green, are you happy for me to ask Matt Gatehouse to answer those questions?
Yes, certainly. We've got Hazel, who is the author here, and Matt as well, so I'm sure they'll be able to cover the points that have been raised by members.
Okay, over to Matt and to Hazel as needed. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Greenland, and thanks, Chair. Hazel's just messaged me to say, as I put my tie on for the day, she'd prefer me to do the piece on camera, and managed to squeeze into the suit, which was quite a surprise after lockdown. But yeah, a couple of the points there. The early one around numbers on the committee, that remains as 9. So we would still have 4 committees, still 4 special responsibility allowances, each committee with 9 members. So there's no change in the overall numbers there. The issue that was raised by Councillor Howard around capacity, I think one of the issues with this structure is that by freeing up each of these, currently, if you think about it, we have 4 committees all doing things like looking at performance indicators, looking at budget monitoring. So it frees up capacity on the officer side because we wouldn't have accountants going to 4 committees, and actually you as members who sit sometimes on 2 committees, I think in a few instances 3, receiving the same budget report 3 times. So that would free up the capacity of the accountants, and it frees up the capacity of members not having to look at the same reports in multiple committees. And that sort of dedicated performance and overview committee really gives us an efficiency, because it dovetails quite nicely then with the new governance and audit committee arrangements, which have been presented to that committee fairly recently, because that committee looks at the effectiveness of the arrangements, and the Performance and Overview Committee looks at the detail from more of a service perspective. So the 2 committees there would work quite effectively together, and that enables us to optimise capacity. There are a couple of points made, and Councillor Matruni's points around the partnership, PS Public Services. It was a bit of a sort of, we haven't really finalised the naming, and if we quite deliberately in the recommendations haven't named the committee, because I think what's important here is the principle, and sometimes when you get into naming, the naming can be a distraction. That one, I'll be perfectly honest, was just what I missed in terms of the drafting. But it's something we just want to talk to members with over the coming weeks and months in the run-up to the AGM, just to finalise the titles of those committee, so they're meaningful to members, they're meaningful to the public, and also understand scrutiny, but more people do understand scrutiny and select committees. So, Chair, hopefully I think that sort of covered all the points that are raised, but if there's anything else, happy to come back or pick up further questions outside of the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. So members, we'll go to the vote with this. Please, the recommendations are on page 153, 2.1, 2.2. And that's...
While that is coming up, can I just thank officers for their work on this? I know that a huge amount of work has been put in, and I must say it's a bit of a weak cop-out to say that Hazel can't come on because she hasn't got a tie on, but never mind, we'll let her off that. And thanks, Matt, for answering the questions.
Thank you very much. So hopefully we'll have that now in the chat bar, the vote function. Thank you.
Can I just...
Okay, that's carried, members. Thank you very much. So moving on through the agenda, we are at 5.7, 5-year Welsh language strategy 2022 to 2027. Elisa, this is you, I believe.
Can you hear? Great. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Can hear you now, yeah.
Yeah, we're having a few technical problems this afternoon, I believe. Okay, so good afternoon, members. So today I'm seeking approval of the Welsh Language Strategy for 22-27. This is a legal requirement under the Welsh Language Wales Measure 2011. It sets out our ambition to increase the number of Welsh speakers in Monmouthshire in line with Welsh Government's aspirations for 1 million Welsh speakers by 2050. And along with other key pieces of legislation and policies which guide our work, such as the Wellbeing and Future Generations Act, More Than Words strategy, our corporate plan, and Welsh in Education strategic plan. We believe the Welsh language is an important part of our heritage and culture, and it is a growing language. In 91, about 2.3% of the population spoke Welsh. 2011, it increased to 9.9%. And 2021, obviously, we're waiting for the confirmed census data, but we anticipate around about 12,000, 14,000 speakers. And I believe some of our successes have attributed to the increase in some of the increase in population, such as launching the first Welsh language chat box for local authority services, established 2 new Welsh medium play groups, worked in partnership with Cymraeg i Blant to arrange a number of parent and children groups at our hubs across the county, and much more, which you can see on page 6 in the strategy. There are a large number of Welsh speakers in the south of the county, in particular Caldecott, but we need to bolster this across the county. So what do we have in store for 22-27? The strategy establishes 4 objectives: increase the number of children who are educated through the medium of Welsh, provide more opportunities for adults to learn and use the language, and increase the number of opportunities for the public to interact with public services delivered through the medium of Welsh, and work with partners to create more social opportunities for people to use the language in everyday life. So how will we set this out? So in our action plan, we look to appoint a Welsh Education Promotion Officer, promote the value of bilingual education in the job market, encourage more learners to study for assessed qualifications through the medium of Welsh, and increase the provision of Welsh medium education for pupils. deliver a marketing campaign to promote the Welsh classes for adults, and we'll increase our target on the number of staff who speak Welsh from 44 to 66. We're going to continue working with some of the fantastic organisations and develop this along with many more actions contained within the strategy. The pressure has been included within the 22-23 budget to increase capacity on equalities in Welsh language, and some of the commitments outlined in the strategy may require Cabinet or Council decisions at a later date. The 22-27 report has been scrutinised by Strong Community Select as part of the annual monitoring report, and this strategy is connected to our Welsh Education Strategic Plan, which is scrutinised by CYP. And lastly, I'd just like to thank the author of the report, Alan Burkett, who is very passionate about this subject. So I'm happy to hand over to you, Chair, and take any questions from members this afternoon.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dimmock. We've got one person has raised a hand so far. That's Councillor Paul Pavia. Councillor Pavia.
Thanks, Chair. This strategy, as the Cabinet member says, dovetails nicely with the Welsh Education Strategic Plan. Our WESP is the key strategic document which we have submitted to Welsh Government, which sets out our 10-year plan to promote the expansion of Welsh medium education and increase the opportunities for learners at all levels to engage with and use the Welsh language in confidence. There was a number of key outcomes within that WESP, which was to ensure that we have more nursery children and 3-year-olds receiving their education through the medium of Welsh, for more reception class children and 5-year-olds to receive their education through the medium of Welsh, more children continue to improve their Welsh language skills when they transfer from one stage of their statutory education to another, more learners to study for assessed qualifications in Welsh and subjects through the medium of Welsh, more opportunities for learners to use Welsh in different contexts in school, to increase the provision of Welsh medium education for pupils with additional learning needs in accordance with the duties imposed by the ALN Tribunal Act 2018, and to increase the numbers of teaching staff able to teach in Welsh as a subject and to teach through the medium of Welsh. And that last point isn't easy because workforce sufficiency and capacity is a national challenge. We know there's not enough Welsh medium teachers in the system, and we obviously need to work as a local authority family with Welsh Government to improve that workforce. So we've got obviously a duty locally to encourage our staff, whether they're proficient or not, to encourage them to take up the Welsh language. I know there's opportunities for sabbaticals, and I know in my children's school a number of teachers have taken up that opportunity to take year sabbaticals to expand their Welsh knowledge and provision. We know from the WESP and through the Childcare Sufficiency assessment that we have to do more to provide early years provision through the medium of Welsh language, particularly in the south of the county, in and around Chepstow in particular. I also think we must do more to promote the access to Welsh medium education to all parents, whether they are Welsh language speakers or not. And I think the action plan underpinning the WESP will achieve that goal. I have heard criticism from some quarters that Monmouthshire is not ambitious enough when it comes to Welsh language strategy and Welsh language agenda. I fundamentally disagree with that. Yes, we are starting at a lower base than some other authorities in Wales, but we do want more of our children to learn through the medium of Welsh and then to go on and be confident adults using the language in every aspect of life. All local authorities in Wales have a duty to support Welsh Government to achieve its aspiration of 1 million Welsh speakers by 2050. I think through the WESP and this strategy we will play our part. And finally, Chair, just to put on record my thanks to Alan Burkett. He's been our Welsh Language and Equalities Officer for a number of years. I know he's going to be leaving the authority shortly, but I just want to thank him for his passion, and I'll certainly miss him on May the 5th. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. No one else has expressed a wish to speak, so I'll go back to you, Councillor Dimmock, just to see if you want to respond to any of those points, and then we'll go to the vote.
No, thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank Councillor Pavia for highlighting in depth the extent of what we're going to promote the Welsh medium language in education. And I also echo his remarks with regards to Alan Burkett.
Excellent, thank you very much. Thank you, members. So the recommendations are on page 173 of the agenda pack at 2.1. That should now come up into the chat bar for a vote. Thank you. Okay, that's carried. Thank you very much, members. Okay, moving on to the agenda is at 5.8, Standards Committee membership, and Matt Phillips will be taking this. Thank you.
Councillors, good afternoon. Matt Phillips, Chief Officer, People and Governance and Monitoring Officer. You'll be au fait with the Standards Committee and the fact that it requires a number of independent members so that it's quorate at the meetings or the hearings that it holds. We carried out a recruitment process recently for another independent member. It's quite a rigid, legislatively led process, so I'm grateful to Dame Claire Clancy, who came in to chair the panel, and to the Standards Committee members who took part. Following the interview process, there was one successful applicant, and that is Mrs. Marion Gibson, and so the recommendation in this report is seeking Council's ratification of that new member to the Standards Committee. Happy to take any questions.
Members, there's a raise hand function in the chat bar if you wish to raise any questions. There's nothing coming through, so I'm happy to take that to the vote. The recommendation is on page 191 of the agenda pack sent out at 2.1. And we can have that in the chat bar as a vote function, please. Okay, it's carried. Thank you very much, members. Moving on then, we're at 6 motions to council. 6.1 submitted by County Councillor Richard John.
Thank you very much. I brought this motion forward today because the ambulance service in Monmouthshire is under risk, is at risk. The Ambulance Services NHS Trust is proposing to remove the 2 rapid response vehicles from both Monmouth and Chepstow stations. This will halve the number of vehicles at those 2 stations, which serve Monmouth, Usk, Chepstow, Caldecott and all the surrounding communities. Monmouth would be left with just 1 ambulance. If that ambulance is out responding to a call, perhaps out in the valley, some distance from Monmouthshire, we would be left with no local coverage whatsoever. These proposed changes are part of a Wales-wide roster review, which the Welsh Government has asked the Welsh Ambulance Services Trust to implement from September this year. According to the Welsh Government, this review will require some operational efficiencies. Ambulance response times in South East Wales are already poor, and the targets for responding to immediately life-threatening Category A calls within 8 minutes are already being consistently missed. It's heartbreaking for ambulance staff when they're unable, through no fault of their own, to provide the level of service that the public rightly expect. We need to do far more to look after our emergency care workers. We need the ambulance service to commit to renewing a permanent home for the service in Monmouth, not some third-rate, cold, temporary porter cabin. We know that one of our members here has recently trained as a paramedic, and I have huge admiration for the work that Debbie and her colleagues do. We know that there are huge pressures on the ambulance service, particularly waiting outside the Grange, often queued up, unable to then respond to other emergency calls. Earlier today, I presented the chairman with a petition signed by almost 1,600 local residents opposing these changes. The former mayor of Monmouth, Jerry Bright, has been doing a vigil for several hours a day outside Monmouth ambulance station with a placard raising awareness of this threat. It was a privilege for Councillor Jamie Treharne and I last Friday to keep Jerry company for an hour outside the station. Our area has already been the victim of centralisation of NHS services, with most recently accident and emergency services removed from Neville Hall. Our geography and border communities means that we are at risk if services are centralised. But it's our duty as councillors to do everything we can to stand up for our residents and to fight these proposals. The level of concern amongst the public over these cuts is significant. Since the news first broke at the end of January, I've been contacted by numerous GPs, nurses and ambulance staff who are all extremely worried about these proposals and they believe that lives will be lost if these proposals are implemented. I'm grateful to all of those who've contacted me directly to share heartwarming stories about when the ambulance service was there for them and their loved ones, but also their fears about what could happen if these services are downgraded. And I want to read a couple of them to you. Someone wrote on the petition, "One of my children would probably no longer be here if it had not been for the rapid response vehicle arriving within 9 minutes." A member of the walking group I belonged to a few years ago suffered a heart attack while we were out walking. A rapid response vehicle with a paramedic arrived from Park Wall to our fairly remote spot within 15 minutes. He contacted ambulance colleagues and the patient was admitted to the Royal Gwent with a suspected heart attack. The ambulance team said to us that the fact the rapid response vehicle was nearer than they were meant that the rapid response vehicle paramedic had almost certainly saved her life. And there's another one here. My mother lives less than a quarter of a mile away from the ambulance station. She fell down the stairs, broke her back, arm and ribs. It took the ambulance service over 6.5 hours to turn up. But to see now that they're planning to reduce this service even further is really ludicrous. Upon hearing the news of these proposed cuts, Peter Fox and I wrote to the Chief Executive of the Welsh Ambulance Service, and to be fair, he responded quickly and offered us a meeting, but unfortunately has been unable to offer us a date before the 31st of March, which we have accepted. I absolutely agree with the point made earlier by our colleague Councillor Bob Greenland about the scrutiny of the NHS. It feels grossly undemocratic that there's no proper oversight about how the nearly £9 billion NHS budget is spent. Health boards and trusts are all accountable to one individual, the Welsh Government Minister. I believe there should be a far greater role for councils in holding the health service to account for its work locally. Paramedics responding to 999 calls in the rapid response vehicles based in Monmouth and at Park Wall have saved countless lives over the years. There are sons, daughters, mothers, fathers alive today who simply would not be had these rapid response vehicles not been available for paramedics to ensure a fast response to heart attacks, strokes and other life-threatening emergencies. Removing these vehicles and effectively halving the capacity of the ambulance service in Monmouthshire is dangerous and reckless. You may have never dialed 999 in your life, but you never know when your life may be in the hands of some incredible paramedics who need the resources to be able to respond immediately. So today, I want us to be able to send a clear message to both the Welsh Government and the Welsh Ambulance Services NHS Trust that we stand united in opposition to these proposals, which dilute the capacity of our emergency services to save the lives of our residents in a moment of crisis. Quite simply, I believe that these proposals will put their lives at risk. So I really hope that members will be able to support this motion today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your motion, Councillor Richard John. Do you have a seconder for that?
Second, Chair.
Thank you, that's been seconded. So we can now debate the motion. So Councillor Jamie Treharne first, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've just got a short comment to make, which echoes Councillor John's words, but if you will bear with me, please. These plans, which could leave Monmouth with no ambulance cover, are downright dangerous and should be scrapped. These changes would put many lives at risk, particularly older and more vulnerable people. We need to press for proper investment in NHS infrastructure in our town. Our paramedics shouldn't be working out of a dilapidated shipping container at the rear of the old station. They deserve proper modern facilities. This is a really dangerous moment for our town, so it's vital we all come together to stand up for our ambulance service, because we never know when a friend, neighbour or relative will need it. And those words go for the station at Parkhall as well. And I would just like to thank Mr. Jerry Bright, who won't thank me for this, but without his standing outside the ambulance station with his placard and his regular phone calls to me, making sure that this is on not only my radar but the town council's radar. Without him, a lot of people wouldn't be aware of what is going on. So I would just like to thank him for that, and I would just like to thank you for your patience in allowing me to speak. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Law-Jones, please.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd just like to concur with all that's been said so far, obviously from our leader, Councillor Richard John, and the work that Peter Fox MS has already done on this, but also from what Jamie just said, and I'm sure other Monmouth councillors to follow. These proposals are disastrous and dangerous. I think that centralising these services is not only wrong and life-threatening, I feel that it once again shows the lack of understanding from those above of the rural areas and its needs. There really does need to be proper engagement with community and our council on this, and I'm appalled that it hasn't been done. And I hope that that will be different going forward, and I'm looking forward to working with my other hat on in fighting for a better service for Monmouthshire and of course Wylesham. And on Wylesham, Chairman, if you just indulge me, just a few short words about my time here, because it has only been short. I'd just like to say it's been a great honour to be a part of this council. It has taught me so much. It's been invaluable into what I now take into my work in the Senedd. It's been proud to be a part of it, and it's always a proud thing to mention it. And I'm sure Peter Fox feels the same way of your workings when I'm in the Senedd talking about Monmouthshire County Council. It's been pioneering, innovative, and first-class council. But it's not just the council itself that has been; it's the people that have made it. So that they've been the most impressive. I don't think we could have got a better chief executive, and I think that Richard has done a sterling job coming in as leader, following of course in the big shoes that Councillor Peter Fox left. It is strong leadership there, and all councillors, and seeing how they've progressed during the 5 years that I've been here. And I think we've got an incredible array of talent coming forward, hopefully in the next elections. Particularly pleased, obviously, to see the amount of ladies standing, and I say well done to everybody across the chamber who's been involved in that. And finally, Wylesham. I'll bring it back to Wylesham and say thank them for the opportunity of being a councillor, but also to reiterate for them the absolute need for these rapid response vehicles being present in our area. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Richard Roden, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Any reduction in rapid response provision in Monmouth will have a negative impact on residents, so I fully support the motion. The Welsh Ambulance Service has questions to answer. Firstly, has poor weather been taken into account in their assessment? Fog, ice, snow, flooding all add time for the vehicles to reach patients. Next, how will ambulance drivers based miles away find their way around efficiently in potentially unfamiliar territory, particularly in rural parts of the area where sat-nav doesn't work well? Also, what impacts in mortality and morbidity are anticipated? Has this actually been assessed by the Welsh Ambulance? Lastly, I want to emphasise time is of the essence for patients requiring rapid response to urgent, life-threatening or serious illness or injury. These proposals, if implemented, will inevitably cause delays and cost lives. The Welsh Ambulance Service needs to think again. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Councillor Giles Howard, please.
Thank you, Chairman. In one very small way, I disagree with the motion because I think the downgrading of the stations puts the lives of residents in all of the county of great danger because any diverted services from the north and Abergavenny and Usk just means a total lack of coverage across the county. And I think as some members will know, I experienced the ambulance service myself towards the end of last year when my dad became poorly. An ambulance was called because they thought he'd had a stroke. It didn't come because there was a wait of 8 hours. A fire engine turned up instead. The fire crew who I talked to after I'd rushed to the house told me that they'd been involved in taking heart attack patients to hospital in the cab of the fire engine. It's absolutely disgraceful. So I ended up driving him to the Grange at midnight and managed to get away then at 4 in the morning. I had to wait outside in the car because there wasn't space in the waiting room there. Absolute bedlam. I've never seen anything like it. I can understand why there's no coverage, or the ambulances were parked at the back waiting to discharge patients and to be triaged. And the car park around there was also bedlam because of all the other people who were having to do the same and take ill people, some of them seriously ill, in cars and then wait in the cold and hope they could get inside and sit down because there's very little space to do that. So it really is absolutely frightening, and also frightening is the way it's become the norm, and we're almost getting used to it because the amount of stories we hear in the press about, and I think there was one today I saw an elderly lady waiting 24 hours in the back of an ambulance. There was something I think on X-ray a couple of weeks ago about a lady with a heart attack had to be taken by car to the Grange. It's disgraceful, and this is one of the most critical issues I think we face in Wales. So to take away from what is already a pitiful service is absolutely mind-boggling, and if I were an older or a person or somebody suffering from some kind of chronic condition or disease, I think I'd be absolutely afraid to be living in Monmouthshire, and I want to be living within 10 minutes of the Grange, which is an appalling position. So of course I can only support the motion because it impacts on every one of us.
Thank you. Councillor Lisa Dimmock, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just thank Councillor Richard John for bringing this motion forward? I'm sure we've all got stories we can tell. Back in 2013, my mum was struggling to breathe while shopping in Caldecott, and my younger sister was with her, frantic, shouting for help. Somebody rang the 999 and a rapid response vehicle arrived, and he gave her oxygen and took her to the Gwent. Unfortunately, she died a week later. But the actions of that paramedic was so thoughtful, professional and caring. We are going to leave people very vulnerable if this happens. If they decide to go ahead with this, people are going to be at great risk, and it's devastating. I cannot believe it has come to this, and I agree with Councillor Howard. People are frightened. The fact that people now have to get lifts to the hospital. When my father had an aneurysm last spring, he was drove to the Grange, and he had further 2 strokes then. It's a real sorry state of affairs. So I really am pleased that Richard brought this forward. And I'm sure many other members can also talk of personal situations where they've been helped by a rapid response vehicle.
Thank you. Councillor Dimitri Petruni, please.
Thank you, Chair. And this motion raises a lot of concerns and fears, and rightly so when it comes to people's health, particularly your family members' health. As Councillor Dimmock said, many people have stories, and recently my nan fell on the floor in Sevenview Care Home and had to wait 6 hours before she could be moved. And so I have got no problem with the thrust of this motion, although I do want to make an amendment because I feel like it's important for this council to be constructive as well, not just hyperbolic as well. And I know that Councillor John has taken to the press with this, perfectly reasonable thing to do, and the Chief Executive of the Welsh Ambulance Service provided a quote to that press which said that he wasn't aware of Councillor John's motion and he only learnt for it via the press, and that he had written to Monmouthshire County Council, and I'm quoting him here, so some weeks ago extending an offer to meet in person, so I presume that hasn't been taken up, which concerns me greatly. So we should have been engaging. Why weren't we engaging? Why haven't we taken that offer up rather than talking about, I get accused of taking stuff to the press, maybe rightly, maybe wrongly, but in this instance, we should have been engaging with the Chief Executive if he's offered that in-person meeting straight away. Should have bitten his hand off. So on my amendment, I'd like to propose to the last sentence, keep it all the same and calls on Welsh Ambulance Service Trust to scrap, and the Welsh Government to scrap these plans, and for the leader of the council to meet the Chief Executive of the Welsh Ambulance Service as soon as possible.
Richard, if you'd like to come back with a point of personal clarification on some of those issues, some of those.
Yeah, I'd like to make a point of clarification on that. So when we first found out about these proposals at the end of January, Peter Fox and I sent a joint letter to Jason Killins, the Chief Executive of the Welsh Ambulance Services NHS Trust. He wrote back 2 days later and did invite us, propose a meeting. Since then, unfortunately, he's been unable to offer us a date for a meeting. So we are very, very keen to meet with him. We were offered a provisional date of the 14th of March. That was then cancelled. We've been told the earliest date he is available to meet with us is the 31st of March. So we have accepted that. But I am very disappointed. It's taken over 2 months to get a meeting, particularly given the level of concern amongst the public. So you're right, I didn't inform them that I brought this motion forward, but we've done everything possible to try to secure that meeting, and I'm very disappointed it's taken this long.
So, Councillor Petrucci, given that that's a point of personal clarification which actually answers, or would go to answer your amendment, do you still wish to put that amendment forward?
I do, Chair, and it's not me who put that. It's his quote, so I'm not saying you have or haven't. I'm just saying what he's quoted. I just think for us and for all the concerns, and highlighted eloquently by all the councillors, it's important that we engage in constructive engagement with the Chief Executive, and I welcome if Councillor John, and I don't know if Councillor Fox is involved in that meeting as well, or Councillor Laura Jones, but I put that on the record that we will, as soon as possible, meet with the Chief Executive, subject to what Councillor John has just said, with the Chief Executive cancelling the 14th of March, I believe you said. So I just want to put that forward so we're clear. We were open for constructive engagement because I wasn't privy to the correspondence Councillor John has had directly with the Chief Executive.
Okay, Councillor Petrucci, can you tell me again that amendment so we can let everyone in the chamber know?
Sorry, Chair. Yes. So all stays the same apart from the last sentence. So following on from calls on the Welsh Ambulance Service Trust, scrap, and the Welsh Government keep to scrap these plans, and then add, and for the leader of the council and local MSs, I'm happy to add that, to meet as soon as possible to discuss this matter.
Councillor Petrucci, do you have a seconder for your...
Yes, Chairman. Yes, Chair, I'd like to second that, and I'd like to speak very briefly to that as well, if I may.
Okay, well, just 1 second, Martin, because it's been seconded in the room. We're just putting that in the chat bar so that everyone is aware of what that amendment is. So if you just bear with us a moment, please.
Yeah, not a problem.
No, to meet the Chief Executive. To be fair, they've Chief Executive of the Welsh Ambulance Trust. So to be fair, the council leader and the MS have extended that invite. So it's to meet the Chief Executive of the Welsh Ambulance Trust as soon as possible. So, you know, it's about, we can condemn it, absolutely. We can oppose it, absolutely. But let's have an action as well, where we get on public record that we're willing to engage, and as soon as possible, given what the leaders just said happened. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so for members of the public who don't see the chat bar, the motion has been proposed and seconded to be changed, where it says calls on Welsh Ambulance Service